Good evening, everybody. Welcome to whatever the hell this is. The, the debacle of debate night right here on the BTP podcast.
Oh, help. Sorry, mute myself. Woo!
We, what are they called again? Spirit fingers.
Oh, God.
Mr. W,
Yes, sir.
what's going on, sir? How you doing?
I got my scoreboard ready. If you
Oh,
can
good.
see that. Camilla's already 7 points behind. We just started her out at -7.
We
And
haven't
I
had
got-
any food yet.
And I got our poll up. It says who's winning the debate. If you hashtag 45 for Trump or hashtag ho in the chat, well,
You know-
which way nobody will do, but I got it ready to go.
We know what's going on there. Mr. Spaz,
What's up?
what's up, brother?
When using paint stripper, make sure your skin ain't paint.
Oh, God.
That's a good thing. That is a good thing.
Pro tip 412. Yeah, right.
Absolutely.
If you have plastic lenses on your glasses and you get paint stripper on them, and an hour later they'll stop bubbling up.
Yeah,
That's happening.
you don't want to do that either.
No.
Warrior in the Garden will be here. He is going to be a little late. And I don't know what's going on with Reverend Rant. I didn't text him or anything, so I have no idea. But anyway, we're about 5 minutes out of the debate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it on screen, set it up, put the volume up, and then see what's going on.
Awesome. Let me fix this. Oh, no. It's not working.
Yeah.
Okay.
A little small talk here and there, but nobody's trying to give him any kind of clues.
So let me ask you
It's
the
go
question.
time.
Let me ask you the question I tried to ask Tom Cotton. He didn't exactly give me an answer, but you will. Which Trump is going to show up tonight? You know what I mean by that. Which Trump?
I think at the beginning of the debate, the Trump who will show up will be the calmer Donald Trump. He knows inherently after the 2020
So,
first
everybody
debate
in
against
chat,
Joe Biden,
Give me
that
a
the other Donald
5
Trump
by
is not
5
the one that's a
if
winning
everything's
formula.
working correctly.
The question's going to be, will he be able to continue to maintain that approach through questioning by David and Lindsay and through any comments that Vice President Harris makes in his direction? And that'll be the key to how he performs tonight.
And you and I were talking. You helped prepare him for those 2016 debates against Hillary Clinton. He told you that he had respect for Hillary Clinton, that Hillary Clinton was smart
not working.
as you were preparing. What about Kamala Harris? We hear not the same.
Well, certainly he's not saying that publicly in any way. And I can tell you that in 2016, he would regularly say during the many debate prep sessions that we had with him that Hillary Clinton was smart, that she was a good debater, that she was not to be taken lightly. And I don't think there was ever a moment in 2016 where he took her lightly. I do think he took Joe Biden lightly in 2020. And clearly during the prep sessions that I had with him, it was very, very difficult to get him to focus on what Joe Biden might or might not do in that first debate. And I think his performance in part reflected that. So the question's going to be, is what he's saying publicly what he really believes? We know that often with Donald Trump, that's performance. But I will tell you that in his 2016 prep, he was serious about getting ready for Hillary Clinton. In his 2020 debate prep, he was completely unserious about getting ready for Joe Biden. I think performances in both those debates reflected that approach.
All right, Chris Christie, you'll be watching with us. Martha?
And we have about 6 minutes left before the debate. So let's bring in Donna Brazil, formerly the DNC, and Frank Priebus, the RNC.
Is this you the
Welcome
one
to both
who
of you.
cheated?
And Donna, let's start
Yeah.
with you.
Oh, I
have
gave
said
answers
Kamala
to her
Harris has to
yesterday.
own the future, but she also has to own the past. So how does she do this?
It's quite easy. Because I do believe that in talking about the future, you draw from your past, you draw from your past experiences. She draws from how she was raised, the values that was instilled in her as a young lady. Look, she is steady on her feet, still in her resolve, and tonight she should talk to the American people, sit in their living rooms,
Steel
go to their
in
kitchen
her
table,
resolve.
and say, look, I have some ideas that I want to share with you. There's so much that we have done together over the last 4 years, but here's
Hey,
what I
Zombie
think we
5.
can do together over the next 4 years. Be positive in her approach and really remind the American people that we don't want to go back to the chaos and the confusion, the disaster that
We
made,
created.
of course, the American people go out in droves in 2020 to fire the former president. Say, I want to be a president that lead all Americans. I want to keep us strong and secure. And here's the plan that I want to share with you tonight.
And Donna, I of course meant Biden. She has to own up to the Biden administration's any mistakes they made too, and Donald Trump is going to go after
What do you
her.
think about this tonight? Well, I really like Hershey bars.
Mr. Trump and Mr. Pence made mistakes.
I like
but you
the
know what? We
bars.
focus on our
Peanuts.
mistakes. We won't focus
Peanuts
on
are
all
good.
the good things that we could do together as Americans. I do believe there's something to say about people who are now able to work. The people who can buy their insulin without paying over $1,000, $35. There's so much good that she can talk about from the visits that she's made to small towns across this country, large cities across the country. Bring us together. The American people want to be led into the future, not dragged back to another era.
And Reince, I want your thoughts on, you've also prepped Donald Trump for debates back in 2016, I believe. What
Thank you, P-Quest.
Donald Trump do you think we'll see tonight? Can he be disciplined about talking about policies and what kind of president he will be?
Well, he certainly can be. I mean, the reality is Donald Trump doesn't have a lot to lose tonight. I mean, his support has always been almost unmovable. So the second piece is the honeymoon, I think, is over for Kamala Harris. And you all kind of touched on it with Donna. Kamala Harris has to answer for the state of the economy that she took a role in the Biden administration, the border, you know, her past positions on decriminalizing the border, decriminalizing certain drugs, what her role was in Afghanistan. So really, the spotlight is on Kamala Harris tonight because she played a role in the Biden administration. She wants to act like she's not an incumbent. So this is where the focus is going to be. And she's got a lot to answer for tonight. And I think that's where Donald Trump's focus will be and where it actually should be tonight.
I hope
one of the things he wants to do is have female voters look at him. How does he attract female voters after saying things about Kamala Harris? And we'll see how he pronounces that tonight. Things he said about Kamala Harris, that she's dumb as a rock. That's not really going to attract female voters, is it?
That's the truth.
Yeah, no, it won't. But I also think that just like he did in the first debate against Joe Biden, I think the formula here is to constantly tie Kamala Harris to the Biden administration, which is where Trump is winning against her on the economy, inflation, and all these other problems that we're having, and then sit back and let her talk. Let her explain herself, her past positions, current positions. How does she feel about how Biden has done on the economy? How does she feel about the border? Well, then turn it over and let her talk.
Okay,
Maybe
thanks
she'll
so
come
much
out
for joining
drunk.
us tonight, Donna and Rice. We're all
Sure
staying
will.
tuned.
And I have to say, as we are just less than 2 minutes away, this such an extraordinary moment, and especially Rachel, when you consider that these two people that have been the center of our lives for the last 2 months have never met each other.
Have never even met each other. And Harris said, if you got something to say it to my face. The question tonight, does Donald Trump actually go there? He's questioned her racial identity. He's questioned her intelligence as well, or does he stick to the issues?
Look, this is the largest audience they're likely going to have in this race. It will be interesting to see if Harris can make clear the stark choice before voters. And where does she decide to land her punches? She can punch hard. Can she do that while rising above the needling coming her way? But first and foremost, are we going to see a handshake when the two of them meet for the first time?
No.
We didn't back in 2016 when I did that debate. We'll stand by to see that tonight. But the first time, side to side.
He shakes her hand.
And I
She's
have my
suing
doubts
for
that we're going to see that.
sexual harassment.
What we are going to see is a spirited debate and perhaps the most consequential general election we have ever seen, because almost certainly going to be the last one. So with the stakes so high, the presidential debate just moments away, We have the entire news division keeping an eye on everything. We are going to be fact-checking on our live blog.
Fact-checking.
It's all going to be happening right here. The debate now just 10 seconds away, and we will be back with our post-game as soon as it's over. We are going to toss it right now to David Muir and Lindsay Davis.
Does everybody have their plush Republican toy in case something goes wrong? You can just stroke your face with it, and nice and soft, and it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay.
Historic race for president upended just weeks ago. President Biden withdrawing after his last debate. Donald Trump now up against a new opponent.
The candidates separated by the smallest of margins, essentially tied in the polls nationally and in the key battlegrounds, including right here in Pennsylvania, all
Is that a
very much in
Squishmallow?
play. The ABC News presidential debate starts right now.
Oh God, you have
This is an
Squishmallow.
ABC News special.
It's Squish-
The most consequential
Yeah, oh
moment
God,
of this
don't let my wife
campaign,
see that.
Kamala
Yes,
Harris.
yes.
We will chart a new way forward.
Donald Trump,
We will soon be a great nation again.
face to face, historic. The ABC News presidential debate. Here now, David Muir and Lindsay Davis.
That dirty pirate hooker.
Good evening, I'm David Muir, and thank you for joining us for tonight's ABC News presidential debate. We want to welcome viewers watching on ABC and around the world tonight. Vice President Kamala Harris and President Donald Trump are just moments away from taking the stage in this unprecedented race for president.
And I'm Lindsay Davis. Tonight's meeting could be the most consequential event of their campaigns, with Election Day now less than 2 months away.
Oh God, 2 months
Vice
away.
President Kamala
Whoa.
Harris, this is
Oh
her
my
first
God.
debate since President Biden withdrew from the race on July 21st.
How can I get all these
Of course, that
illegals
decision
hidden in my
followed his
basement
debate
registered to
against
vote
President
real
Donald
quick?
Trump in June. Since then, this race has taken on an entirely new dynamic.
And that brings us to the rules of tonight's debate. 90 minutes with 2 commercial breaks. No topics
As
or
is on the
questions
floor,
have been
Trump
shared with the
getting the last minute.
campaigns. The candidates will have 2 minutes to answer questions, and this is the clock. That's what they'll be seeing. 2 minutes for rebuttals and 1 minute for follow-ups, clarifications, or responses. Their microphones will only be turned on when it's their turn to speak. No pre-written notes allowed. There is no audience here tonight in this hall at the National Constitution Center. This is an intimate setting for 2 candidates
That's as
who have
loud
never met.
as it
President
goes,
Trump
Jimbo.
won the coin toss. He chose to deliver the
That's already a
final
lot
closing
better.
statement of the evening.
Is it? Okay.
Vice President Harris selected the podium to the right.
That's
So
as
let's
loud
now
as it
welcome
goes.
the candidates to the stage. Vice President Kamala Harris and President Donald Trump.
Yay, yay. Oh, Jerry loses the point for walking out.
Kamala Harris. Let's have a good day. Thank you.
Welcome to you both. It's wonderful to have you. It's an honor to have you both here tonight.
She looks
Good
like a
evening.
midget.
We are looking forward to a spirited and thoughtful debate.
So let's get started. I want to begin tonight with the issue that voters repeatedly say
Her
is their
podium
number
is
one
shorter
issue,
than
and that is
Donald
the
Trump's.
economy and the
That's
cost
so
of living in this
misogynistic.
country. Vice President Harris, you and President Trump were elected 4 years ago, and your opponent on the stage here tonight often asks his supporters, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? When it comes to the economy, do you believe Americans are better off than they were 4 years ago?
So I was raised a middle class kid, and I am actually the only person on this stage who has a plan that is about lifting up the middle class and working people of America.
Sure.
I believe in the ambition, the aspirations, the dreams of the American people. And that is why I imagine and have actually a plan to build what I call an opportunity economy. Because here's the thing.
Sure didn't like
We
it.
know that we have a shortage of homes and housing, and the cost of housing is too expensive for far too many people. We know that young families need support to raise their children, and I intend on extending a tax cut for those families of $6,000, which is the largest child tax credit that we have given in a long time, so that those young families can afford to buy a crib, buy a car seat, buy clothes for their children. My passion, one of them, is small businesses. My mother raised my sister and me,
You
but
should
there
come
was a
back
woman who helped raise us.
with
We
the
call her our
opportunity
second
zones.
mother. She was a small business owner. I
Keep
love our
track.
small businesses.
Keep
My
track.
plan is to give a $50,000 tax deduction to start up small businesses, knowing they are part of the backbone of America's economy.
That's his opportunity.
My opponent, on the other hand,
To everybody
his plan
but
is
white
to do what he has done before.
Damn it, Warrior, you
Which
run.
is to provide a tax cut for billionaires and big corporations, which will result in $5 trillion to America's deficit. My opponent has a plan that I call the Trump's sales tax, which would be a 20% tax on everyday goods that you rely on to get through the month. Economists have said that Trump sales tax would actually result for middle-class families in about $4,000 more a year because of his policies and his ideas about what should be the backs of middle-class people paying for tax cuts for billionaires.
President Trump, I'll give you 2 minutes.
First of all, I have no sales tax. That's an incorrect statement. She knows that. We're doing tariffs on other countries. Other countries are going to finally, after 75 years, pay us back for all that we've done for the world. And the tariff will be substantial in some cases. I took in billions and billions of dollars, as you know, from China. In fact, they never took the tariff off because there was so much money they can't. It would totally destroy everything that they've set out to do. They're taking in billions of dollars from China and other places. They've left the tariffs on. When I had it, I had tariffs, and yet I had no inflation. Look, we've had a terrible economy because inflation which is really known as a country buster. It breaks up countries. We have inflation like very few people have ever seen before, probably the worst in our nation's history. We were at 21%, but that's being generous because many things are 50, 60, 70, and 80% higher than they were just a few years ago. This has been a disaster for people, for the middle class, but for every class. On top of that, we have millions of people pouring into our country from prisons and jails, from mental institutions and insane asylums, and they're coming in and they're taking jobs that are occupied right now by African Americans and Hispanics, and also unions. Unions are going to be affected very soon. And you see what's happening. You see what's happening with towns throughout the United States. You look at Springfield, Ohio. You look at Aurora in Colorado. They are taking over the towns. They're taking over buildings. They're going in violently. These are the people that Xi and Biden led into our country, and they're destroying our country. They're dangerous. They're at the highest level of criminality, and we have to get them out. We have to get them out fast. I created one of the greatest economies in the history of our country. I'll do it again and even better.
We are going to get to immigration and border security during this debate, but I would like to let Vice President Harris respond on the economy here.
Well, I would love to. Let's talk about what Donald Trump left us. Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment since the Great Depression. Donald Trump left us the worst public health epidemic in a century. Donald Trump left us the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War. And what we have done is clean up Donald Trump's mess. What we have done and what I intend to do is build on what we know are the aspirations and the hopes of the American people. But I'm going to tell you all in this debate tonight, you're going to hear from the same old tired playbook, a bunch of lies, grievances, and name calling. What you're going to hear tonight is a detailed and dangerous plan called Project 2025 that the former president intends on implementing if he were elected again.
Yeah.
I believe very strongly that the American people want a president who understands the importance of bringing us together, knowing we have so much more in common than what separates us. And I pledge to you to be a president for all Americans.
President Trump will give you a minute here to respond.
Number one, I have nothing to do, as you know, and as she knows better than anyone, I have nothing to do with Project 2025. That's out there. I haven't read it. I don't want to read it purposely. I'm not going to read it. This was a group of people that got together. They came up with some ideas, I guess some good, some bad, but it makes no difference. I have nothing to do. Everybody knows I'm an open book. Everybody knows what I'm going to do. Cut taxes very substantially and create a great economy like I did before. We had the greatest economy. We got hit with a pandemic. And the pandemic was not since 1917, where 100 million people died, has there been anything like it. We did a phenomenal job with the pandemic. We handed them over a country where the economy and where the stock market was higher than it was before the pandemic came in. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. We made ventilators for the entire world. We got gowns, we got masks, we did things that nobody thought possible. And people give me credit for rebuilding the military. They give me credit for a lot of things, but not enough credit for the great job we did with the pandemic. But the only jobs they got were bounce back jobs. These were jobs bounced back, and it bounced back and it went to their benefit. But I was the one that created them. They know it, and so does everybody else.
Vice President Harris, I'll let you respond.
Mm-hmm.
So Donald Trump has no plan for you. And when you look at his economic plan, it's all about tax breaks for the richest people. I am offering what I describe as an opportunity economy, and the best economists in our country, if not the world,
I'm not a fan of Trump, but
reviewed our
I even know that's
relative
bullshit.
plans for the future of America. What Goldman Sachs has said is that Donald Trump's plan would make the economy worse. Mine would strengthen the economy. What the Wharton School has said is Donald Trump's plan would actually explode the deficit. 16 Nobel laureates have described his economic plan as something that would increase inflation and by the middle of next year would invite a recession. You just have to look at where we are and where we stand on the issues. And I'd invite you to know that Donald Trump actually has no plan for you because he is more interested in defending himself than he is in looking out for you.
It's just a soundbite. They gave her that to say. Look, I went to the Wharton School of Finance, and many of those professors, the top professors, think my plan is a brilliant plan. It's a great plan. It's a plan that's going to bring up our worth, our value as a country. It's going to make people want to be able to go and work and create jobs and create a lot of good, solid money for our country. And just to finish off, she doesn't have a plan. She copied Biden's plan, and it's like 4 sentences, like run, spot, run. 4 sentences that are just, oh, we'll try and lower taxes. She doesn't have a plan. Take a look at her plan. She doesn't have a plan.
Mr. President, I do want to drill down on something you both brought up. The Vice President brought up your tariffs. You responded, and let's drill down on this because your plan is what she calls is essentially a national sales tax. Your proposal calls for tariffs, as you pointed out here, on foreign imports across the board. You recently said that you might double your plan, imposing tariffs up to 20% on goods coming into this country. As you know, many economists say that with tariffs at that level, costs are then passed on to the consumer. Vice President Harris has argued it'll mean higher prices on gas, food, clothing, medication, arguing it costs the typical family nearly $4,000 a year. Do you believe Americans can afford higher prices because of tariffs?
They're not going to have higher prices. What's going to have and who's going to have higher prices is China and all of the countries that have been ripping us off for years. I was the only president ever. China was paying us hundreds of billions of dollars, and so were other countries. And, you know, if she doesn't like them, they should have gone out and they should have immediately cut the tariffs. But those tariffs are there 3.5 years now under their administration. We are going to take in billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars. I had no inflation, virtually no inflation. They had the highest inflation perhaps in the history of our country because I've never seen a worse period of time. People can't go out and buy cereal or bacon or eggs or anything else. The people of our country are absolutely dying with what they've done. They've destroyed the economy. And all you have to do is look at a poll. The polls say 80 and 85 and even 90% that the Trump economy was great, that their economy was terrible.
Vice President Harris, I do want to ask for your response. And you heard what the president said there, because the Biden administration did keep a number of the Trump tariffs in place. So how do you respond?
Well, let's be clear that the Trump administration resulted in a trade deficit, one of the highest we've ever seen in the history of America. He invited trade wars. You want to talk about his deal with China? What he ended up doing is under Donald Trump's presidency, he ended up selling American chips to China to help them improve and modernize their military, basically sold us out, when a policy about China should be in making sure the United States of America wins the competition for the 21st century, which means focusing on the details of what that requires, focusing on relationships with our allies, focusing on investing in American-based technology so that we win the race on AI, on quantum computing, focusing on what we need to do to support America's workforce so that we don't end up having on the short end of the stick in terms of workers' rights, But what Donald Trump did, let's talk about this, with COVID, is he actually thanked President Xi for what he did during COVID. Look at his tweet. Thank you, President Xi, exclamation point, when we know that Xi was responsible for lacking and not giving us transparency about the origins of COVID.
President Trump, I'll let you respond.
First of all, they bought their chips from Taiwan. We hardly make chips anymore because of philosophies like they have and policies like they have. I don't say her because she has no policy. Everything that she believed 3 years ago and 4 years ago is out the window. She's going to my philosophy now. In fact, I was going to send her a MAGA hat. She's gone to my philosophy. But if she ever got elected, she'd change it. And it will be the end of our country. She's a Marxist. Everybody knows she's a Marxist. Her father's a Marxist professor in economics, and he taught her well. But when you look at what she's done to our country, and when you look at these millions and millions of people that are pouring into our country monthly, where it's, I believe, 21 million people, not the 15 that people say, and I think it's a lot higher than the 21. That's bigger than New York State pouring in. And just look at what they're doing to our country. They're criminals. Many of these people coming in are criminals. And that's bad for our economy, too. You know, you mentioned before, we'll talk about immigration later. Well, bad immigration is the worst thing that can happen to our economy. They have, and she has, destroyed our country with policy that's insane. Almost policy that you'd say they have to hate our country.
President Trump, thank you. Lindsay?
I want to turn to the issue of abortion. President Trump, you've often touted that you were able to kill Roe v. Wade. Last year, you said that you were proud to be the most pro-life president in American history. Then last month, you said that your administration would be great for women and their reproductive rights. In your home state of Florida, you surprised many with regard to your 6-week abortion ban because you initially had said that it was too short. And you said, quote, I'm going to be voting that we need more than 6 weeks. But then the very next day, you reversed course and said you would vote to support the 6-week ban. Vice President Harris says that women shouldn't trust you on the issue of abortion because you've changed your position so many times. Therefore, why should they trust you?
Well, the reason I'm doing that vote is because the plan is, as you know, the vote is, they have abortion in the 9th month. They even have, and you can look at the governor of West Virginia, the previous governor of West Virginia, not the current governor, who's doing an excellent job, but the governor before, he said the baby will be born and we will decide what to do with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the baby. And that's why I did that, because that predominates, because they're radical. The Democrats are radical in that. And her vice presidential pick, which I think was a horrible pick, by the way, for our country, because he is really out of it. But her vice presidential pick says abortion in the 9th month is absolutely fine. He also says execution after birth. It's execution, no longer abortion, because the baby is born, is okay. And that's not okay with me, hence the vote. But what I did is something for 52 years, they've been trying to get Roe v. Wade into the states. And through the genius and heart and strength of 6 Supreme Court justices, we were able to do that. Now, I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. I believe strongly in it. Ronald Reagan did also. 85% of Republicans do. Exceptions. Very important. But we were able to get it, and now states are voting on it. And for the first time, you're going to see, look, this is an issue that's torn our country apart for 52 years. Every legal scholar, every Democrat, every Republican, liberal, conservative, they all wanted this issue to be brought back to the states where the people could vote. And that's what happened. Now, Ohio, the vote was somewhat liberal. Kansas, the vote was somewhat liberal, much more liberal than people would have thought. But each individual state is voting. It's the vote of the people now. It's not tied up in the federal government. I did a great service in doing it. It took courage to do it. And the Supreme Court had great courage in doing it. And I give tremendous credit to those 6 justices.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born. Madam Vice President, I want to get your response to President Trump.
Well, as I said, you're going to hear a bunch of lies, and that's not actually a surprising fact. Let's understand how we got here. Donald Trump hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade. And they did exactly as he intended. And now in over 20 states, there are Trump abortion bans, which make it criminal for a doctor or nurse to provide health care. In one state, it provides prison for life. Trump abortion bans that make no exception even for rape and incest, which understand what that means. A survivor of a crime of violation to their body does not have the right to make a decision about what happens to their body next. That is immoral. And one does not have to abandon
Missouri's that
their
way,
faith
where it's
or deeply held beliefs
the incest
to agree.
or
The government
detriment
and
of the mother
Donald
is,
Trump certainly
is
should
high
not
question.
be telling a woman what to do with her body. I have talked with women around our country. You want to talk about this is what people wanted? Pregnant women who want to carry a pregnancy to term, suffering from a miscarriage, being denied care in an emergency room because the healthcare providers are afraid they might go to jail, and she's bleeding out in a car in the parking lot. She didn't want that. Her husband didn't want that. A 12 or 13-year-old survivor of incest being forced to carry a pregnancy to term. They don't want that. And I pledge to you, when Congress passes a bill to put back in place the protections of Roe v. Wade, as President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law. But understand, if Donald Trump were to be reelected, he will sign a national abortion ban. Understand, in his Project 2025, there will be a national abortion, a monitor that would be monitoring your pregnancies, your miscarriages.
Oh, yeah,
I think
sure.
the American people believe that certain freedoms, in particular the freedom to make decisions about one's own
Oh, that
body,
Handmaid's Tale
should
son of a
not be
bitch.
made by the government.
Thank you, Vice President Harris.
Well, there she goes again. It's a lie. I'm not signing a ban, and there's no reason to sign a ban because we've gotten what everybody wanted. Democrats, Republicans, and everybody else, and every legal scholar wanted it to be brought back into the states, and the states are voting. And it may take a little time, but for 52 years, this issue has torn our country apart, and they've wanted it back in the states. And I did something that nobody thought was possible. The states are now voting. What she says is an absolute lie. And as far as the abortion ban, no, I'm not in favor of abortion ban, but it doesn't matter because this issue has now been taken over by the states.
Would you veto a national abortion ban if it came
Well,
to
I
your
won't
desk?
have to because, again, two things. Number one, she said she'll go back to Congress. She'll never get the vote. It's impossible for her to get the vote, especially now with the 50-50 and essentially 50-50 in both Senate and the House. She's not going to get the vote. She can't get the vote. She won't even come close to it. So it's just talk. You know what it reminds me of? When they said they're going to get student loans terminated, and it ended up being a total catastrophe. The student loans, and then her, I think probably her boss, if you call him a boss, he spends all his time on the beach. But look, her boss went out and said, we'll do it again. We'll do it a different way. And he went out, got rejected again by the Supreme Court. So all these students got taunted with this whole thing about this whole idea, and how unfair that would have been. Part of the reason they lost to the millions and millions of people that had to pay off their student loans. They didn't get it for free, but they were saying it's the same way that they talked about that they talk about abortion.
But if I could just get a yes or no, because your running mate, J.D. Vance, has said that you would veto it if it did come to your desk.
Well, I didn't discuss it with J.D. In all fairness, J.D. And I don't mind if he has a certain view, but I think he was speaking for me, but I really didn't. Look, we don't have to discuss it because she'd never be able to get it, just like she couldn't get student loans. They couldn't get student loans. They didn't even come close to getting student loans. They taunted young people and a lot of other people that had loans.
That's true.
They can never get this approved. So it doesn't matter what she says about going to Congress. Well, wonderful. Let's go to Congress, do it. But the fact is that for years, they wanted to get it out of Congress and out of the federal government. And we did something that everybody said couldn't be done. And now you have a vote of the people on abortion.
Vice
Boom.
President Harris, want to give you
There
your
you
time
go.
to respond, but I do want to ask, would you support any restrictions on a woman's right to an abortion?
I absolutely support reinstating the protections of Roe v. Wade. And as you rightly mentioned, nowhere in America is a woman carrying a pregnancy to term and in asking for an abortion. That is not happening. It's insulting to the women of America. And understand what has been happening under Donald Trump's abortion bans. Couples who pray and dream of having a family are being denied IVF treatments. What is happening in our country? Working people, working women who are working 1 or 2 jobs, who can barely afford childcare as it is, have to travel to another state to get on a plane sitting next to strangers to go and get the health care she needs.
Wow.
Barely can afford to do it. And what you are putting her through is
You watch my kid
unconscionable.
probably go get an
And
abortion.
the people of America have not, the majority of Americans believe in a woman's right to make decisions about her own body. And that is why in every state where this issue has been on the ballot, in red and blue states both, the people of America have voted for freedom.
Vice President Harris,
Excuse me, I
thank
have
you.
to respond. Another lie. It's another lie. I have been a leader on IVF, which is fertilization. The IVF, I have been a leader. In fact, when they got a very negative decision on IVF from the Alabama courts, I saw the people of Alabama and the legislature 2 days later voted it in. I've been a leader on it. They know that, and everybody else knows it. I have been a leader on fertilization,
She's not
IVF.
doing too well.
And the other thing, you should ask, will she allow abortion in the 8th month, 9th month, 7th month?
Come on.
Okay, would you do that? Why don't you ask her
Why-
that question?
why don't you
That's
answer
the
the question?
problem.
Would you
because
veto?
under Roe v.
Answer
Wade,
the question, would you veto?
you could do abortions in the 7th month, the 8th month, the 9th
That's
month,
not true.
and probably after birth. Just look at the former governor of Virginia. The governor of Virginia said, we put the baby aside and then we determine what we want to do with the baby.
President Trump, thank you.
We're going to turn now to immigration and border security. We know it's an issue that's important to Republicans, Democrats, voters across the board in this country.
In your
Vice
class,
President
have a
Harris,
barbecue.
you were tasked by President Biden with getting to the root causes of migration from Central America. We know that illegal border crossings reached a record high in the Biden administration. This past June, President Biden imposed tough new asylum restrictions. We know the numbers since then have dropped significantly. But my question to you tonight is, why did the administration wait until 6 months before the election to act? And would you have done anything differently from President Biden on this?
So I'm the only person on this stage who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations for the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings. And let me say that the United States Congress, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Senate, came up with a border security bill, which I supported. And that bill would have put 1,500 more border agents on the border to help those folks who are working there right now overtime, trying to do their job.
What about 3 years
It would
ago?
have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States. I know there are so many families watching tonight who have been personally affected by the surge of fentanyl in our country. That bill would have put
We
more
realize we
resources
fucked up,
to
but
allow
we're
us
sorry.
to prosecute
We're sorry.
transnational criminal organizations
sorry.
for trafficking in guns, drugs, and human beings. But you know what happened to that bill? Donald Trump got on the phone, called up some folks in Congress, and said, kill the bill. And you know why? Because he'd prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem.
Bullshit.
And understand, this comes at a time where the people of our country actually need a leader who engages in solutions, who actually addresses the problems at hand. But what we have in the former president is someone who would prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And I'll tell you something, he's going to talk about immigration a lot
abortion?
tonight, even when it's not the subject that is being raised. And I'm going to actually do something really unusual, and I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies, because it's a
Hell
really
yeah.
interesting
All
thing
right.
to watch. You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. He
Yeah.
will talk about
That
windmills
was
cause
cool.
cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom. And I will tell you, the one thing you will not hear him talk about is you. You will not hear him talk about your needs, your dreams, and your desires. And I'll tell you, I believe you deserve a president who actually puts you first. And I pledge to you that I will.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, on that point, I want to get your
Well, I
response.
would like to respond.
Let me just ask, though, why did you try to kill that bill, and successfully so? That would have put thousands of additional agents and officers on the border.
First, let me respond as to the
Please.
rallies. She said people start leaving. People don't go to her rallies. There's no reason to go. And the people that do go, she's bussing them in and paying them to be there,
That's
and
true.
then showing them in a different light. So she can't talk about that. People don't leave my rallies. We have the biggest rallies, the most incredible rallies in the history of politics. That's because people want to take their country back. Our country is being lost. We're a failing nation. And it happened 3.5 years ago. And what's going on here, you're going to end up in World War III, just to go into another subject. What they have done to our country by allowing these millions and millions of people to come into our country, and look at what's happening to the towns all over the United States. And a lot of towns don't want to talk. It's not going to be Aurora or Springfield. A lot of towns don't want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country, and it's a shame. As far as rallies are concerned, as far as the reason they go is they like what I say. They want to bring our country back. They want to make America great again. It's a very simple phrase, make America great again. She's destroying this country, and if she becomes president, this country doesn't have a chance of success. Not only success, we'll end up being Venezuela on steroids.
I just want to clarify here. You bring up Springfield, Ohio, and ABC News did reach out to the city manager there. He told us there have been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals.
There's videos.
The immigrant community. Let me just say here, this is
the people on television say my dog was taken and used for food. So maybe he said that, and maybe that's a good thing to say for a city manager.
I'm not taking this from
but
television.
The people
I'm
on
taking it from
television
the city
saying
manager.
their dog was eaten by the people that went there.
Again, the Springfield city manager says there's no evidence of that. Vice
We'll
President
find
Harris,
out.
I'll let you respond to the rest of what you've heard.
You talk about extreme.
Uh,
This is, I think, one of the reasons why in this election, I actually have the endorsement of 200 Republicans who have formally worked with President Bush, Mitt Romney, and John McCain.
There you go. There's a reason.
Including the endorsement of former Vice President Dick Cheney and Congressmember Liz Cheney. And if you want to really know the inside track on who the former president is, if he didn't make it clear already, just ask people who have worked with him. His former chief of staff, a 4-star general, has said he has contempt for the Constitution of the United States. His former national security advisor has said he is dangerous and unfit. His former Secretary of Defense has said the nation, the republic, would never survive another Trump term. And when we listen to this kind of rhetoric, when the issues that affect the American people are not being addressed, I think the choice is clear in this election.
President Trump, I'll give you a quick minute to respond here.
Thank you, because when I hear that, see, I'm a different kind of a person. I fired most of those people. Not so graciously. They did bad things or a bad job. I fired them. They never fired one person. They didn't fire anybody having to do with Afghanistan and the Taliban and the 13 people who's were just killed, viciously and violently killed. And I got to know the parents and the family. They didn't fire. They should have fired all those generals, all those top people, because that was one of the most incompetently handled situations anybody has ever seen. So when somebody does a bad job, I fire him. And you take a guy like Esper, he was no good, I fired him. So he writes a book. Another one writes a book, because with me, they can write books. With nobody else can they? But they have done such a poor job, and they never fire anybody. Look at the economy. Look at the inflation. They didn't fire any of their economists. They have the same people. That's a good way not to have books written about you. But just to finish, I got more votes than any Republican in history by far. In fact, I got more votes than any president, sitting president in history by far.
Let me continue on immigration. It was what you wanted to talk about earlier. So let's get back to your deportation proposal that the vice president has reacted to as well. President Trump, you call this the largest domestic deportation operation in the history of our country. You say you would use the National Guard. You say if things get out of control, you'd have no problem using the U.S. military.
Police,
You also said you would use local police. How would you deport 11 million undocumented immigrants? I know you believe that number is much higher. Take us through this. What does this look like? Will authorities be going door to door in this country?
Yeah, it is much higher because of them. They allowed criminals, many, many millions of criminals. They allowed terrorists. They allowed common street criminals. They allowed people to come in, drug dealers, to come into our country. And they're now in the United States and told by their countries like Venezuela, don't ever come back or we're going to kill you. Do you know that crime in Venezuela and crime in countries all over the world is way down? You know why? Because they've taken their criminals off the street and they've given them to her to put into our country. And this will be one of the greatest mistakes in history for them to allow. And I think they probably did it because they think they're going to get votes, but it's not worth it because they're destroying the fabric of our country by what they've done. There's never been anything done like this at all. They've destroyed the fabric of our country. Millions of people let in, and all over the world, crime is down all over the world except here. Crime here is up and through the roof. Despite their fraudulent statements that they made, crime in this country is through the roof. And we have a new form of crime. It's called migrant crime. And it's happening at levels that nobody thought possible.
President Trump, as you know, the FBI says overall violent crime is actually coming down in this country. But Vice
Excuse me,
President
the
Harris,
FBI they were defrauding statements. They didn't include the worst cities. They didn't include the cities with the worst crime. It was a fraud. Just like their number of 818,000 jobs that they said they created turned out to be a fraud.
President Trump, thank you. I'll let you respond, Vice President Harris.
Well, I think this is so rich coming from someone who has been prosecuted for national security crimes, economic crimes,
For what?
election
Name 'em.
interference, has been found liable for sexual assault, and his next big court appearance is in November at his own criminal sentencing. And let's be clear where each person stands on the issue of what is important about respect for the rule of law and respect for law enforcement. The former vice president called for defunding federal law enforcement, 45,000 agents, get this, on the day after he was arraigned on 34 felony counts. So let's talk about what is important in this race. It is important that we move forward, that we turn the page on this same old tired rhetoric and address the needs of the American people, address what we need to do about the housing shortage, which I have a plan for, address what we must do to support our small businesses, address bringing down the price of groceries. But frankly, the American people are exhausted with this same old tired playbook.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
Excuse me. Every one of those cases was started by them against their political opponent. And I'm winning most of them, and I will win the rest on appeal. And you saw that with the decision that came down just recently from the Supreme Court. I'm winning most of them. But those are cases, it's called weaponization. Never happened in this country. They weaponized the Justice Department. Every one of those cases was involved with the DOJ, from Atlanta and Fani Willis to the Attorney General of New York and the DA in New York. Every one of those cases. And then they say, oh, he's a criminal. They're the ones that made them go after me. By the way, Joe Biden was found essentially guilty on the documents case. And what happened in my documents case? They said, oh, that's the toughest of them all. A complete and total victory. 2 months ago, it was thrown out. It's weaponization, and they used it, and it's never happened in this country. They used it to try and win an election. They're fake cases.
President Trump, thank you. A really quick response here, Vice President Harris, on this notion of weaponization of the Justice Department.
Well, let's talk about extreme and understand the context in which this election in 2024 is taking place. The United States Supreme Court recently ruled that the former president would essentially be immune from any misconduct if he were to enter the White House again. Understand, this is someone who has openly said he would terminate, I'm quoting, terminate the Constitution of the United States. That he would weaponize the Department of Justice against his political enemies. Someone who has openly expressed disdain for members of our military. Understand what it would mean if Donald Trump were back in the White House with no guardrails. Because certainly we know now the court won't stop him. We know J.D. Vance is not going to stop him. It's up to the American people
Vice President
to stop
Harris,
him.
Thank you. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president.
This is the one that weaponized, not me. She weaponized. I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me. They talk about democracy. I'm a threat to democracy. They're the threat to democracy
President
with a fake Russia investigation
We do have a lot to
that
get-
went nowhere.
We have a lot to get to. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president, you said you wanted to ban fracking. Now you don't. You wanted mandatory government buyback programs for assault weapons. Now your campaign says you don't. You supported decriminalizing border crossings. Now you're taking a harder line. I know you say that your values have not changed. So then why have so many of your policy positions changed?
So my values have not changed, and I'm going to discuss at least every point that you've made. But in particular, let's talk about fracking because we're here in Pennsylvania. I made that very clear in 2020. I will not ban fracking. I have not banned fracking as Vice President of the United States. And in fact, I was the tie-breaking vote on the Inflation Reduction Act, which opened new leases for fracking. My position is that we have got to invest in diverse sources of energy so we reduce our reliance on foreign oil. We have had the largest increase in domestic oil production in history because of an approach that recognizes that we cannot over-rely on foreign oil. As it relates to my values, let me tell you, I
What did
grew
she just
up a
say?
middle-class
I have
kid
no
raised
idea.
by a hardworking mother who worked and saved and was able to buy our first home when I was a teenager. The values I bring to the importance of home ownership, knowing not everybody got handed $400 million on a silver platter and then filed bankruptcy 6 times, is a value that I bring to my work to say we are going to work with the private sector and home builders to increase by 3 million homes by the end of my first term. My work that is related to having a friend when I was in high school who was sexually assaulted by her stepfather. And my focus then on protecting women and children from
here we go.
violent
Right back.
crime
Yep.
is based
Yep.
on a value that is deeply grounded in the importance of standing up for those who are most vulnerable. My work that is about protecting Social Security and Medicare is based on long-standing work that I have done, protecting seniors from scams. My values have not changed. And what is important is that there is a president who actually brings values and a perspective that is about lifting people up and not beating people down and name calling. The true measure of the leader is the leader who actually understands the strength is not in beating people down, it's in lifting people up. I intend to be that president.
President Trump, your
Well,
response?
first of all, I wasn't given $400 million. I wish I was. My father was a Brooklyn builder, Brooklyn, Queens, and a great father, and I learned a lot from him. But I was given a fraction of that, a tiny fraction, and I built it into many, many billions of dollars, many, many billions. And when people see it, they are even surprised. So we don't have to talk about that. Fracking, she's been against it for 12 years. Defund the police, she's been against that forever. She gave all that stuff up. Very wrong. And everybody's laughing at it, okay? They're all laughing at it. She gave up at least 12 and probably 14 or 15 different policies. Like, she was big on defund the police. In Minnesota, she went out. Wait a minute, I'm talking now. You don't mind, please. Does that sound familiar? She went out in Minnesota and wanted to let criminals that killed people, that burned down Minneapolis, she went out and raised money to get them out of jail. She did things that nobody would ever think of. Now she wants to do transgender operations on illegal aliens that are in prison. This is a radical left liberal that would do this. She wants to confiscate your guns, and she will never allow fracking in Pennsylvania. If she won the election, fracking in Pennsylvania will end on day one. Just to finish one thing so important, in my opinion. So I got the oil business going like nobody has ever done before. When they took over, they got rid of it, started getting rid of it, and the prices were going up the roof. They immediately let these guys go to where they were. I would have been 5 times, 4 times, 5 times higher, because you're talking about 3.5 years ago. They got it up to where I was because they had no choice, because the prices of energy were quadrupling and doubling. You saw what happened to gasoline. So they said, let's go back to Trump. But if she won the election, the day after that election, they'll go back to destroying our country, and oil will be dead, fossil fuel will be dead. We'll go back to windmills, and we'll go back to solar, where they need a whole desert to get some energy to come out. You ever see a solar plant? By the way, I'm a big fan of solar, but they take 400, 500 acres of desert
President
soil.
Trump, we have a
These
lot
are
of
not good
issues
things
that we
for the
have to get
environment,
to.
as
We're
she
out of time.
understands.
Thank you.
Lindsay, thank you. We have an election in just 56 days. And I want to talk about the peaceful transfer of power, which, of course, we all know is a cornerstone of our democracy and the role of a president in a moment of crisis. Mr. President, on January 6th, you told your supporters to march to the Capitol. You said you would be right there with them.
Oh, here we go.
The country and the world saw what played out at the Capitol that day, the officers coming under attack. Aides in the West Wing say you watched it unfold on television off the Oval Office.
Oh, you were there?
You did send out tweets, but it was more than 2 hours before you sent out that video message telling your supporters to go home.
He was there.
Is there anything you
I was
regret
there.
about what you did on that day?
You just said a thing that isn't covered. Peacefully and patriotically, I said during my speech, not later on. Peacefully and patriotically. And nobody on the other side was killed. Ashley Babbitt was shot by an out-of-control police officer that should have never, ever shot her. It's a disgrace. But we didn't do this group of people that have been treated so badly. I ask, what about all the people that are pouring into our country and killing people that she allowed to pour in? She was the border czar. Remember that. She was the border czar. She doesn't want to be called the border czar because she's embarrassed by the border. In fact, she said at the beginning, oh, I'm surprised you're not talking about the border yet. That's because she knows what a bad job they've done. What about those people? When are they going to be prosecuted? When are these people from countries all over the world, not just South America? They're coming in from all over the world, David. All over the world, and crime rates are down all over the world because of it.
But let me just
when
ask
are those, David? When are those people going to be prosecuted? When are the people that burned down Minneapolis going to be prosecuted? Or in Seattle, they went into Seattle. They took over a big percentage of the city of Seattle. When are those people going to be prosecuted?
But let me just ask
You might ask her that question.
You were the president. You were watching it unfold on television. It's a very simple question as we move forward toward another election. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day? Yes or no?
I had nothing to do with that other than they asked me to make a speech. I showed up for a speech. I said, I think it's going to be big. I went to Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington, D.C., and the mayor put it back in writing, as you know. I said, you know, this is going to be a very big rally or whatever you want to call it. And again, it wasn't done by me. It was done by others. I said, I'd like to give you 10,000 National Guard or soldiers. They rejected me. Nancy Pelosi rejected me. It was just 2 weeks ago, her daughter has a tape of her saying she is fully responsible for what happened. They want to get rid of that tape. It would have never happened if Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington did their jobs. I wasn't responsible for security. Nancy Pelosi was responsible. She didn't do her job.
The question was about you as president, not about former Speaker Pelosi, but I do want Vice President Harris to respond here.
I was at the Capitol on January 6th. I was the vice president-elect. I was also an acting senator. I was there.
Cowering in fear.
And on that day, the president of the United States incited a violent mob to attack our nation's capital, to desecrate our nation's capital. On that day, 140 law enforcement officers were injured.
If we were
And some
coming for
died.
your ass
And
would have got
understand,
got.
the
That's right.
former president has been indicted and impeached for exactly that reason. But this is not an isolated situation. Let's remember Charlottesville.
Oh, here we go,
There
Charlottesville.
was a mob of people carrying tiki torches,
Bending
spewing
bunk.
anti-Semitic hate.
Was
And
that
what
the
did
FBI?
the president then at the time say? There were fine people on each side.
No.
Let's remember that when it came to the Proud Boys, a militia, the president said, the former president said, stand back and stand by.
No, he didn't.
So for everyone watching
stand
who
down.
remembers what January 6th was,
What's wrong with
I
militias
say
now?
we don't have to go back. Let's not go back. We're not going back. It's time to turn the page. And if that was a bridge too far for you, well, there is a
Oh,
place
God, 4 years of this.
in
I'd have
our
to
campaign for you to stand for country, to stand for our democracy, to stand for rule
Democracy.
of law, and to end the chaos, and to end the approach that is about attacking the foundations of our democracy because you don't like the outcome. And be clear on that point. Donald Trump, the candidate, has said in this election there will be a bloodbath.
Isn't that
If
how you
this
fucked up the
and the
last
outcome
election?
of this election is not to his liking.
You didn't like the outcome?
Let's turn the page on this. Let's not go back.
Turn the
Let's
page.
chart a course for
Book's
the
closed.
future and not go backwards to the past.
Let me just follow up here.
It was a different term, and it was a term that related to energy because they have destroyed our energy business. That was where bloodbath was. Also, on Charlottesville, that story has been, as you would say, debunked. Laura Ingraham, Sean Hannity, Jesse, all of these people, they covered it. If they go an extra sentence, they will see it was perfect. It was debunked in almost every newspaper, but they still bring it up, just like they bring 2025 up. They bring all of this stuff up. I ask you this, you talk about the Capitol. Why are we allowing these millions of people to come through on the southern border? How come she's not doing anything? And I'll tell you what I would do, and I would be very proud to do it. I would say we would both leave this debate right now. I'd like to see her go down to Washington, D.C. during this debate because we're wasting a lot of time. Go down to, because she's been so bad, it's so ridiculous. Go down to Washington, D.C. and let her sign a bill to close up the border because they have the right to do it. They don't need bills. They have the right to do it. The president of the United States, you'll get him out of bed. You'll wake him up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. You'll say, come on down to the office. Let's sign a bill. If he signs a bill that the border is closed, all he has to do is say it to the Border Patrol, who are phenomenal. If they do that, the border is closed.
Mr.
Those
President,
people are killing many people, unlike J6.
We talked immigration here tonight. I do want to focus on this next issue to both of you because it really brings us this into focus, truth in these times that we're living in. Mr. President, for 3.5 years after you lost the 2020 election, you repeatedly falsely claimed that you won, many times saying you won in a landslide. In the past couple of weeks leading up to this debate, you have said, quote, you lost by a whisker, that you, quote, didn't quite make it, that you came up a little bit short.
I said that?
Are you now acknowledging that you lost in 2020?
No, I don't acknowledge that at all.
But
I
you
said
did
that
say
sarcastically.
But
You know
those-
that. It was said, oh, we lost by a whisker. That was said sarcastically. Look, there's so much proof. All you have to do is look at it.
Yeah.
And they should have sent it back to the legislatures for approval. I got almost 75 million votes, the most votes any sitting president has ever gotten. I was told if I got 63, which was what I got in 2016, you can't be beaten. The election, people should never be thinking about an election as fraudulent. We need two things. We need walls, and we have to have it. We have to have borders, and we have to have good elections. Our elections are bad. And a lot of these illegal immigrants coming in, they're trying to get them to vote. They can't even speak English. They don't even know what country they're in practically. And these people are trying to get them to vote. And that's why they're allowing them to come into our country.
I did watch all of these pieces of video. I didn't detect the sarcasm, lost by a whisker. We didn't quite make it. And we should just point out here as clarification, and you know this, you and your allies, 60 cases in front of many judges, many of them
No
Republican.
judge looked at it.
And said
They
there was
said
no
we didn't have
widespread fraud.
standing. That's the other thing. They said we didn't have standing, a technicality. Can you imagine a system where a person in an election doesn't have standing? The president of the United States doesn't have standing. That's how we lost. If you look at the facts, and I'd love to have you'll do a special on it. I'll show you Georgia, and I'll show you Wisconsin, and I'll show you Pennsylvania, and I'll show
Arizona.
you. We have so many facts and statistics.
Michigan.
But you know what?
Michigan.
That doesn't matter because we have to solve the problem that we have right now. That's old news. And the problem that we have right now is we have a nation in decline, and they have put it into decline. We have a nation that is dying, David.
Mr. President, thank you. Vice President Harris, you heard the president there tonight. He said he didn't say that he lost by a whisker. So he still believes he did not lose the election that was won by President Biden and yourself. But I do want to ask you about something that's come up in the last couple of days. This was a post from President Trump about this upcoming election just weeks away. He said, when I win, those people who cheated, and then he lists donors, voters, election officials, he says will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, which will include long-term prison sentences. One of your campaign's top lawyers responded saying, we won't let Donald Trump intimidate us. We won't let him suppress the vote. Is that what you believe he's trying to do here?
Donald Trump was fired by 81 million people. So let's be clear about that. And clearly he is having a very difficult time processing that. But we cannot afford to have a president of the United States who attempts, as he did in the past, to upend the will of the voters in a free and fair election.
A quarter of
I'm
them
going
are
to tell
dead.
you that I have traveled the
What the
world as vice president of the United States, and world leaders are laughing at Donald Trump. I have talked with military leaders, some of whom worked with you, and they say you're a disgrace. And when you then talk in this way in a presidential debate and deny what over and over again are court cases you have lost because you did in fact lose that election, it leads one to believe that perhaps we do not have in the candidate to my right the temperament or the ability to not be confused about fact. That's deeply troubling, and the American people deserve better.
I'll give you 1 minute to respond, Mr. President.
Let me just say about world leaders. Viktor Orban, one of the most respected men, they call him a strong man. He's a tough person, smart. Prime Minister of Hungary. They said, why is the whole world blowing up? 3 years ago, it wasn't. Why is it blowing up? He said, because you need Trump back as president. They were afraid of him. China was afraid, and I don't like to use the word afraid, but I'm just quoting him. China was afraid of him. North Korea was afraid of him. Look at what's going on with North Korea, by the way. He said Russia was afraid of him. I ended the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, and Biden put it back on day one, but he ended the XL pipeline. The XL pipeline in our country, he ended that. But he let the Russians build a pipeline going all over Europe and heading into Germany, the biggest pipeline in the world. Look, Viktor Orban said it. He said the most respected, most feared person is Donald Trump. We had no problems when Trump was president. But when this weak, pathetic man that you saw at a debate just a few months ago, that if he weren't in that debate, he'd be running instead of her. She got no votes. He got 14 million votes. What you did, you talk about a threat to democracy. He got 14 million votes, and they threw him out of office. And you know what? I'll give you a little secret. He hates her. He can't stand her. But he got 14 million votes. They threw him out. She got 0 votes. And when she ran, she was the first one to leave because she failed. And now she's running. I don't understand it, but I'm okay with it because
your time is
I think
up.
we're
Thank
going to
you.
do very well.
We've got a lot more to get to.
Turning now
Yes.
to the Israel-Hamas war and the hostages who are still being held, Americans among them. Vice President Harris, in December, you said, quote, Israel has a right to defend itself, but you added, quote, it matters how, saying international humanitarian law must be respected. Israel must do more to protect innocent civilians. You said that 9 months ago. Now an estimated 40,000 Palestinians are dead. Nearly 100 hostages remain. Just last week, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said there's not a deal in the making. President Biden has not been able to break through the stalemate. How would you do it?
Well, let's understand how we got here. On October 7, Hamas, a terrorist organization, slaughtered 1,200 Israelis. Many of them young people who were simply attending a concert. Women were horribly raped. And so absolutely, I said then, I say now, Israel has a right to defend itself. We would. And how it does so matters. Because it is also true, far too many innocent Palestinians have been killed. Children, mothers. What we know is that this war must end. It must end immediately, and the way it will end is we need a ceasefire deal and we need the hostages out. And so we will continue to work around the clock on that. Work around the clock, also understanding that we must chart a course for a two-state solution. And in that solution, there must be security for the Israeli people and Israel, and in equal measure for the Palestinians. But the one thing I will assure you always, I will always give Israel the ability to defend itself, in particular as it relates to Iran and any threat that Iran and its proxies pose to Israel. But we must have a two-state solution where we can rebuild Gaza, where the Palestinians have security, self-determination, and the dignity they so rightly deserve.
President Trump, how would you negotiate with Netanyahu and also Hamas in order to get the hostages out and prevent the killing of more innocent civilians in Gaza?
If I were president, it would have never started. If I were president, Russia would have never, ever, I know Putin very well, he would have never, and there was no threat of it either, by the way, for 4 years, have gone into Ukraine and killed millions of people when you add it up, far worse than people understand what's going on over there. But when she mentions about Israel, all of a sudden, she hates Israel. She wouldn't even meet with Netanyahu when he went to Congress to make a very important speech. She refused to be there because she was at a sorority party of hers. She wanted to go to the sorority party. She hates Israel. If she's president, I believe that Israel will not exist within 2 years from now. And I've been pretty good at predictions, and I hope I'm wrong about that one. She hates Israel. At the same time, in her own way, she hates the Arab population because the whole place is going to get blown up. Arabs, Jewish people, Israel will be gone. It would have never happened. Iran was broke under Donald Trump. Now Iran has $300 billion because they took off all the sanctions that I had. Iran had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah or any of the 28 different spheres of terror. And they are spheres of terror, horrible terror. They had no money. It was a big story, and you know it. You covered it very well, actually. They had no money for terror. They were broke. Now they're a rich nation, and now what they're doing is they're spreading that money around. Look at what's happening with the Houthis and Yemen. Look at what's going on in the Middle East. This would have never happened. I will get that settled and fast, and I'll get the war with Ukraine and Russia ended. If I'm president-elect, I'll get it done before even becoming president.
Vice President Harris, he says you hate Israel.
That's absolutely not true. I have my entire career and life supported Israel and the Israeli people. He knows that. He's trying to, again, divide and distract from the reality, which is it is very well known that Donald Trump is weak and wrong on national security and foreign policy. It is well known that he admires dictators, wants to be a dictator on day one, according to himself.
Oh, God.
It is well known that he said of Putin that he can do whatever the hell he wants and go into Ukraine. It is well known that he said when Russia went into Ukraine, it was brilliant. It is well known he exchanged love letters with Kim Jong-un. And it is absolutely well known that these dictators and autocrats are rooting for you to be president again because they're so clear. They can manipulate you with flattery and favors. And that is why so many military leaders who you have worked with have told me you are a disgrace. That is why we understand that we have to have a president who is not consistently weak and wrong on national security, including the importance of upholding and respecting in highest regard our military.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
They're the ones, and she's the one that caused it, that's weak on national security by allowing every nation last month for the year, 168 different countries sending people into our country. Their crime rates are way down. Putin endorsed her last week, said, I hope she wins. And I think he meant it because what he's gotten away with is absolutely incredible. It wouldn't have happened with me. The leaders of other countries think that they're weak and incompetent, and they are. They're grossly incompetent. And I just ask one question. Why does Biden go in and kill the Keystone Pipeline and approve the single biggest deal that Russia's ever made, Nord Stream 2, the biggest pipeline anywhere in the world going to Germany and all over Europe? Because they're weak and they're ineffective. And Biden, by the way,
President
gets paid
Trump,
a lot of money.
Thank you. We have a lot of issues to get to.
We'll be right back with much more of this historic ABC News presidential debate.
Oh, we get a break
National
finally?
Constitution Center right here in Philadelphia. Back in a moment.
How long is this thing, Pete?
90 minutes.
I wonder what kind of commercials are going to play.
The ABC
You
News
have
presidential debate will continue after this.
A mac and cheese commercial?
Oh, my God.
A Snuggie commercial?
It's supposed to be 90 minutes long.
Hulu.
I'm kind of hoping it's like a Trumpy Bear commercial or a Trump Bible commercial or something like that. So we can all have our plush little toys. Soft. It's so soft.
I don't think
so soft.
anybody's going to see past Kamala Harris. This bullshit.
Oh, look at that. Somebody died. Who was it?
Sorry.
Yep. We're looking at the commercial. Or, I don't know. Maybe it's a TV show. I don't know.
It's for Hulu.
A serial killer. Oh.
It's a commercial for Hulu.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not like serial killers could be coming over the border right now.
No.
No.
I gotta get to the Spaz. I'm gonna get him. I'm coming across this border and kill Spaz. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He plays that metal music and it drives me crazy. I gotta kill him.
Yep. Just know I stab back.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
I'll put the volume back on.
I was a wild chick. Jason Momoa exploded.
Carmen was a bombshell.
Pamela Anderson
Thought he was
was
bigger.
an icon.
What is that?
Really proud of everything.
Is that a praying mantis?
Almost.
Baywatch was a whirlwind of epic highs and bitter lows.
Everyone likes to watch sexy things.
Oh, wow.
You're 24.
There's a show where I won't
He's
be watching.
54.
No.
Yeah. It just seemed like I had met my soulmate.
It's like Super Bowl commercial.
Friday, 2020 is all new.
The 32-year-old former ballerina,
the center of the so-called Black Swan trial.
Here we go. You haven't spoken out before. Why did you decide to talk now?
The stunning all new 2020 premieres Friday at 9/8 Central on ABC.
Hey, good morning, America. Good morning, America.
Good morning, America.
Are you covering the biggest events in the country right now? There's
Whoa.
a lot going on here.
You don't just see it, you feel it.
I'm in.
I'm in.
I'm in too.
I am here, and so
They're all in.
I'm in too.
What are we in for?
They're in that circle.
Oh.
East season
I'm out.
finale is upon us. Dog food in thy fridge?
it's not dog food. It's fresh pet. Real meat, real veggies.
She looks
For thy
green.
beast?
There's always a betrayal in the finale.
Restaurant bread, stale policies, no cheddar. Cheddar Bay 2024 is here to clean up the crumbs.
What the-
Come in now for a chance to win 4 years of free Red Lobster.
Red-
Because
what?
one bite can unite all parties.
Red Lobster
At least for dinner.
went bankrupt.
Other sausage brands use non-meat filler. That's just non-good. Keep it real, people, and keep it juicy.
That should be your new slogan.
I prefer it moist over juicy myself.
And those.
I like the
We put
moist
your
meat,
brand on
not the
everything
juicy
so
meat.
customers can notice you, remember you, and fall in love with you.
Keep it
If you need
juicy
it,
with
we
heat.
print it with 25% off for new customers at Vistaprint.com.
Cheeto time.
What's it like to get glasses from Moscow?
Pete, those will
It's like
kill you
talking to people
faster
who
than
really know their
cancer will.
It's like knowing your frames are designed by us. Literally.
That's why you're like, yeah, that's why
It's
that's why I
seeing
need them.
just obsessed. I mean, invested.
Yep.
Our team is in making sure your frames fit, look, and feel absolutely perfect. Icing on the cake, right?
It's actually a clinical trial to see which one kills me quicker.
Oh,
Cheetos or cancer.
he's learning value.
Yes.
You're streaming ABC News
Plus they were on sale.
What does it take to be the most watched newscast in America?
Do you lick your fingers or do you wipe them?
We are part of an operation.
Is this our Combat Operations Center?
We're approaching the gate. Militants came in from.
Hi, appreciate you.
Thank you. Ismail, David.
ABC's World News Tonight with David Muir is America's
Look at the
most
camera
watched
like you're serious.
newscast. You're watching
Yeah,
America's
like that.
#1 streaming news. Keep streaming with ABC News Live.
Look important at the camera.
The commercials are better than a debate.
Live
There
from
was
the
a Disney
National
Plus one.
Constitution Center in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Here again, David Muir and Lindsay Davis.
Where the hell is
Welcome
that
back
in
to
Philly?
this historic ABC News presidential
This is
debate tonight. We're going to
solid,
continue here, and I want to turn to the
Probably
war in
won't tell
Ukraine.
us.
We're now 2.5 years into this conflict. Mr. President, it has been the position of the Biden administration that we must defend Ukraine from Russia, from Vladimir Putin,
they
to
call him
defend their
Mr.
sovereignty,
President
their
again.
democracy, that it's in America's best interest to do so, arguing that if Putin wins, he may be emboldened to move even further into other countries. You have said you would solve this war in 24 hours. You said so just before the break tonight. How exactly would you do that? And I want to ask you a very simple question tonight. Do you want Ukraine to win this war?
I want the war to stop. I want to save lives. that are being uselessly, people being killed by the millions. It's the millions. It's so much worse than the numbers that you're getting, which are fake numbers. Look, we're in for 250 billion or more because they don't ask Europe, which is a much bigger beneficiary to getting this thing done than we are. They're in for $150 billion less because Biden and you don't have the courage to ask Europe like I did with NATO. They paid billions and billions, hundreds of billions of dollars when I said, either you pay up or we're not going to protect you anymore. So that's maybe one of the reasons they don't like me as much as they like weak people. But you take a look at what's happening. We're in for 250 to 275 billion. They're into 100 to 150. They should be forced to equalize. With that being said, I want to get the war settled. I know Zelensky very well, and I know Putin very well. I have a good relationship, and they respect your president, okay? They respect me. They don't respect Biden. How would you respect him? Why? For what reason? He hasn't even made a phone call in 2 years to Putin, hasn't spoken to anybody. They don't even try and get it. That is a war that's dying to be settled. I will get it settled before I even become president. If I win, when I'm president-elect, and what I'll do is I'll speak to one, I'll speak to the other, I'll get them together. That war would have never happened. And in fact, when I saw Putin after I left, unfortunately left because
Is that
our
her dick sucking
country has
face?
gone to hell. But after I left, when I saw him building up soldiers, he did it after I left. I said, oh, he must be negotiating. It must be a good, strong point of negotiation. Well, it wasn't, because Biden had no idea how to talk to him. He had no idea how to stop it. And now you have millions of people dead, and it's only getting worse, and it could lead to World War III. Don't kid yourself, David. We're playing with World War III, and we have a president that we don't even know if he's. Where is our president? We don't even know if he's a president.
And just to clarify
We
here,
threw him out of a campaign like a dog. We don't even know. Is he our president? But we have a president,
Mr. President,
that doesn't know he's alive.
your time is up. Just to clarify in the question, do you believe it's in the U.S. best interest for Ukraine to win this war, yes or no?
I think it's the U.S. best interest to get this war finished and just get it done.
All right.
Negotiate a deal, because we have to stop all of these human lives from being destroyed.
I want to take this to Vice President Harris. I want to get your thoughts on support for Ukraine in this moment, but also as Commander-in-Chief, if elected, how would you deal with Vladimir Putin, and would it be any different from what we're seeing from President Biden?
Well, first of all, it's important to remind the former president you're not running against Joe Biden, you're running against me. I believe the reason that Donald Trump says that this war would be over within 24 hours is because he would just give it up. And that's not who we are as Americans. Let's understand what happened here. I actually met with Zelensky a few days before Russia invaded, tried through force to change territorial boundaries, to defy one of the most important international rules and norms, which is the importance of sovereignty and territorial integrity. And I met with President Zelensky. I shared with him American intelligence about how he could defend himself. Days later, I went to NATO's eastern flank, to Poland and Romania. And through the work that I and others did, we brought 50 countries together to support Ukraine in its righteous defense.
And the war
because of
started
our
anyway.
support, because of the air defense,
You did
the
nothing.
ammunition, the artillery, the javelins, the Abrams tanks that we have provided, Ukraine stands as an independent and free country. If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now. And understand what that would mean, because Putin's agenda is not just about Ukraine. Understand why the European allies and our NATO allies are so thankful that you are no longer president, and that we understand the importance of the greatest military alliance the world has ever known, which is NATO, and what we have done to preserve the ability of Zelensky and the Ukrainians to fight for their independence. Otherwise, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv with his eyes on the rest of Europe, starting with Poland. And why don't you tell the 800,000 Polish Americans right here in Pennsylvania how quickly you would give up for the sake of favor and what you think is a friendship with what is known to be a dictator who would eat you for lunch.
Vice President Harris, thank you. We've heard from both of you on Ukraine tonight. Afghanistan came up in the last hour. I wanted her to respond to something you said earlier, and I'll give you a minute here.
Putin would be sitting in Moscow, and he wouldn't have lost 300,000 men and women, but he would have been sitting in Moscow. Quiet, please. He would have been sitting in Moscow, much happier than he is right now. But eventually, you know, he's got a thing that other people don't have. He's got nuclear weapons. They don't ever talk about that. He's got nuclear weapons. Nobody ever thinks about that. And eventually, maybe he'll use them, and maybe he hasn't been that threatening, but he does have that. Something we don't even like to talk about. Nobody likes to talk about it. But just so you understand, they sent her to negotiate peace before this war started. 3 days later, he went in and he started the war because everything they said was weak and stupid. They said the wrong things. That war should have never started. She was the emissary. They sent her in to negotiate with Zelensky and Putin, and she did. And the war started 3 days later. And that's the kind of talent we have with her. She's worse than Biden. In my opinion, I think he's the worst president in the history of our country. She goes down as the worst vice president in the history of our country. But let me tell you something. She is a horrible negotiator. They sent her in to negotiate. As soon as they left, Putin did the invasion.
President Trump, thank you. You did bring up something. You said she went to negotiate with Vladimir Putin. Vice President Harris, have
She
you
had
ever
knee
met
pads,
Vladimir
and they said
Putin?
no
Can you
thanks.
clarify tonight?
That's right.
Yet again, I said it at the beginning of this debate, you're going to hear a bunch of lies coming from this fella. And that is another one. When I went to meet with President Zelensky, I've now met with him over 5 times.
Ooh.
The reality is it has been about standing as America always should, as a leader upholding international rules and norms, as a leader who shows strength, understanding that the alliances we have around the world are dependent on our ability to look out for our friends and not favor our enemies because you adore strongmen instead of caring about democracy. And that is very much what is at stake here. The President of the United States is commander-in-chief. And the American people have a right to rely on a president who understands the significance of America's role and responsibility in terms of ensuring that there is stability and ensuring we stand up for our principles and not sell them for the benefit of personal flattery.
We've talked about Ukraine and Vladimir Putin. I do want to talk about Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of this
She
debate.
said she's going to war.
I want to move on to Afghanistan.
Said Trump did the most amazing thing I've ever seen. He got these countries, the 28 countries at the time, to pay up. He said, I've never seen. He's the head of NATO. He said, I've never seen. For years, we were paying almost all of NATO. We were being ripped off by European nations, both on trade and on NATO. I got them to pay up by saying one of the statements you made before, if you don't pay, we're not going to protect you.
President
Otherwise,
Trump.
we would have never gotten it. He said it was one of the most incredible jobs that he's ever seen done.
Thank you. I want to turn to Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of the debate, and we witnessed a poignant moment today on Capitol Hill, honoring the soldiers who died in the chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan. I do want to ask the Vice President, do you believe you bear any responsibility in the way that withdrawal played out?
Well, I will tell you, I agreed with President Biden's decision to pull out of Afghanistan. Four presidents
no regrets.
said they would, and Joe Biden did. And as a result, America's taxpayers are not paying the $300 million a day we were paying for that endless war. And as of today, there is not one member of the United States military who is in active duty in a combat zone in any war zone around the world, the first time this century.
Well,
But let's understand how we got
Iraq.
to where we are. Donald Trump, when he was president, negotiated
People just got killed
one of
in
the
Iraq.
weakest deals you can imagine. He calls himself a deal maker. Even his national security advisor said it was a weak, terrible deal. And here's how it went down. He bypassed the Afghan government. He negotiated directly with a terrorist organization called the Taliban.
Yeah, that's what you
The
did. How you
negotiation
doing?
involved the Taliban getting 5,000 Taliban terrorists released.
How many
And get
guns they
this,
give
no,
them?
get
Three?
this. And
Helicopters?
the president at the time invited the Taliban to Camp David. a place
Oh.
of storied significance for us as Americans, a place where we honor the importance of American diplomacy, where we invite and receive respected world leaders.
Aren't they all
And
dead?
And then he invited Castro there.
Former president, as president, invited them to Camp
what
David
Camp David is
because he does
for.
not again appreciate the role and responsibility
She's
of the President of the United States
She is
to be
impressing me.
commander-in-chief with a level of respect. And this gets back to the point of how he has consistently disparaged and demeaned members of our military, fallen soldiers,
There we go again.
and the work that we must do to uphold the strength and the respect of the United States of America around the world.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, your response to her saying that you began the negotiations with the Taliban.
So, if you take a look at that period of time, the Taliban was killing our soldiers, a lot of them, with snipers. And I got involved with the Taliban because the Taliban was doing the killing. That's the fighting force within Afghanistan. They don't bother doing that because, they deal with the wrong people all the time. But I got involved. And Abdul is the head of the Taliban. He is still the head of the Taliban. And I told Abdul, don't do it anymore. You do it anymore, you're going to have problems. And he said, why do you send me a picture of my house? I said, you're going to have to figure that out, Abdul. And for 18 months, we had nobody killed. We did have an agreement negotiated by Mike Pompeo. It was a very good agreement. The reason it was good, we were getting out. We would have been out faster than them, but we wouldn't have lost the soldiers. We wouldn't have left many Americans behind, and we wouldn't have left $85 billion worth of brand new, beautiful military equipment behind. And just to finish, they blew it. The agreement said you have to do this, and they didn't do it. They didn't do it. The agreement was terminated by us because they didn't do what they were supposed to do.
I want to move on.
And these people
No,
did
no,
the worst
let 'em finish.
withdrawal, and in my opinion, the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. And by the way, that's why Russia attacked Ukraine, because they saw how incompetent she and her boss are.
President Trump, thank you. I want to move on now to race and politics in this country. Mr. President, you recently said of Vice President Harris, quote, I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when
true.
she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. I want to ask a bigger picture question here tonight. Why do you believe it's appropriate to weigh in on the racial identity of your opponent?
I don't, and I don't care.
Because you're white.
I don't care what she is. I don't care.
Right?
You make a big deal out of something. I couldn't care less. Whatever she wants to be is okay with me.
But those were your words. So I'm
I
asking.
don't know. I mean, all I can say is I read where she was not black, that she put out, and I'll say that. And then I read that she was black, and that's okay. Either one was okay with me. That's up to her. That's up to her.
Vice President Harris, your thoughts on this?
Here we go.
I think honestly, I think it's a tragedy that we have someone who wants to be president who has consistently, over the course of his career, attempted to use race to divide the American people.
Call them.
I do believe that the vast majority of us know that we have so much more in common than what separates us, and we don't want this kind of approach that is just constantly trying to divide us, and especially by race. And let's remember how Donald Trump started. He was land. He owned land. He owned buildings.
He was a mafia.
And he was investigated because he refused to rent
Yes, Mr. Trump.
property to
Yes,
black families.
Yes.
Let's remember, this is the same individual who took out a full-page ad in the New York Times calling for the execution of 5 young Black and Latino boys who were innocent, the Central Park 5. Took out a full-page ad calling for their execution. This is the same individual who spread birther lies about the first Black president of the United States. And I think the American people
She's really
want
trying, man.
better than
Yes,
that.
she is.
She
Want
is
better than
impressing me.
this. Want someone who understands as I do. I travel our country.
Okay.
We see in each other a friend. We see in each other a neighbor. We don't want a
It's my
leader
Indian
who's
neighbor.
constantly trying to have Americans point their fingers
My
at
Asian
each other.
friend.
I meet with people all the time who tell me, can we please just have discourse about how we're going to invest in the aspirations and the ambitions and the dreams of the American people?
No one.
Knowing that regardless of people's color or the language their grandmother speaks, we all have the same dreams and aspirations and want a president who invests in those, not in hate and division.
All you have to do is say,
thank you. Lindsay?
President Trump, this is now your third time.
None of that matters.
This is the most divisive presidency in the history of our country. There's never been anything like it. They're destroying our country, and they come up with things like what she just said. Going back many, many years, when a lot of people, including Mayor Bloomberg, agreed with me on the Central Park Five, they admitted, they said, they pled guilty. And I said, well, if they pled guilty, they badly hurt a person, killed a person ultimately. And if they pled guilty, then they pled, we're not guilty. But this is a person that has to stretch back years, 40, 50 years ago, because there's nothing now. I built one of the greatest economies in the history of the world, and I'm going to build it again. It's going to be bigger, better, and stronger. But they're destroying our economy. They have no idea what a good economy is. Their oil policies, every single policy. And remember this, she is Biden. You know, she's trying to get away from Biden. I don't know the gentleman, she says. She is Biden. The worst inflation we've ever had, a horrible economy because inflation has made it
Biden
so
a racist.
bad, and she can't get away with that.
She did. I forgot. Yeah, thanks.
I want to just respond briefly. Clearly, I am not Joe Biden, and I am certainly not Donald Trump. And what I do offer is a new generation of leadership for our country.
Oh God, that's
One who
good.
believes
That's some scary
in
shit.
what is possible, one who brings a sense of optimism about what we can do instead of always
I think we're seeing
disparaging the American people. I believe in what
Optimism
we
is
can
our
do to
cats getting eaten.
strengthen our small businesses, which is why I have
Our
a plan.
apartment
Let's
building's
talk
getting run
about
over.
our plans and let's compare the plans. I have a plan to
You
give
don't have a
startup
plan.
businesses $50,000 tax deduction to pursue their ambitions, their innovation, their ideas, their hard work. I have a plan, $6,000 for young families for the first year of your child's life to help you in that most critical stage of your child's development. I have a plan that is about allowing people to be able to pursue what has been fleeting in terms of the American dream by offering a help with down payment of $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers. That's the kind of conversation, I believe, David, that people really want
For 3.5
tonight,
years, I was
as
just
opposed to a conversation that is
More
constantly
money
about
solves the
belittling
problem.
yeah.
That's all.
and name calling. Let's turn the page
Vice President
and move
Harris,
forward.
thank you. Let's turn to policy.
President
Let's
Trump,
turn
we
back to
have
policy.
to move on. President Trump.
Let's turn to policy,
Thank
please.
you for the cookie.
To defund the police. She has a plan to confiscate everybody's gun.
President
She
Trump,
has
you
a
have to
plan
move
to
on to
not
other
allow
issues.
fracking in Pennsylvania or anywhere else.
Okay.
That's
Mr.
what her
President.
plan is until just recently.
I just need
Lindsay,
to
go ahead.
respond
No,
because
Trump,
the
President
former
Trump.
president has said
No, I'm
something
sorry.
twice that
Blah,
I need to
blah, blah,
respond to.
blah,
I'm
blah,
sorry,
blah.
we're going to move on, Vice
One
President.
Chaos!
what he has
President
said.
Trump, this
Come
is
on, I'm
your
gonna get this
second
over with.
time running for president. You have long vowed to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. You have failed to accomplish that. You now say you're going to keep Obamacare, quote, unless we can do something much better. Last month, you said, quote, we're working on it. So tonight, 9 years after you first started running, do you have a plan, and can you tell us what it is?
Obamacare was lousy health care, always was. It's not very good today. And what I said, that if we come up with something, and we are working on things, we're going to do it and we're going to replace it. But remember this, I inherited Obamacare because Democrats wouldn't change it. They wouldn't vote for it. They were unanimous. They wouldn't vote to change it. If they would have done that, we would have had a much better plan than Obamacare. But the Democrats came up, they wouldn't vote for it. I had a choice to make when I was president. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, never going to be great, or do I let it rot? And I felt I had an obligation, even though politically it would have been good to just let it rot and let it go away. I decided, and I told my people, the top people, and they're very good people. I have a lot of good people in that administration. We read about the bad ones. We had some real bad ones too, and so do they. They have really bad ones. The difference is they don't get rid of them. But let me just explain. I had a choice to make. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, or do I let it rot? And I saved it. I did the right thing, but it's still never going to be great, and it's too expensive for people. And what we will do is we're looking at different plans. If we can come up with a plan that's going to cost our people, our population, less money and be better health care than Obamacare, then I would absolutely do it. But until then, I'd run it as good as it can be run.
So just a yes or no, you still do not have a plan?
I have concepts of a plan. I'm not president right now. But if we come up with something, I would only change it if we come up with something that's better and less expensive. And there are concepts and options we have to do that. And you'll be hearing about it in the not too distant future.
Vice President Harris, in 2017, you supported Bernie Sanders' proposal to do away with private insurance and create a government-run healthcare system. 2 years later, you proposed a plan that included a private insurance option. What is your plan today?
Well, first of all, I absolutely support, and over the last 4 years as vice president, private healthcare options. But what we need to do is maintain and grow the Affordable Care Act. But I'll get to that, Lindsay. I just need to respond to the previous point that the former president has made.
Transgender
I made very clear
surgeries.
my position on fracking. And then this business about taking everyone's guns away. Tim Walz and I are both gun owners. We're not taking anybody's guns away. So stop with the continuous lying about this stuff. As it relates to the Affordable Care Act, understand, just look at the history to know where people stand. When Donald Trump was president, 60 times he tried to get rid of the Affordable Care Act.
What does
60
mandatory
times.
mean?
I was a senator at the time when I will never forget the early morning hours when it was up for a vote in the United States Senate. And the late, great John McCain, who you have disparaged as being, you don't like him, you said at the time, because he got caught. He was an American hero. The late, great John McCain, I will never forget that night, walked onto the Senate floor and said, no, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't get rid of the Affordable Care Act. You have no plan. And what the Affordable Care Act has done is eliminate the ability of insurance companies to deny people with pre-existing conditions. I don't have to tell the people watching tonight, you remember what that was like? Remember when an insurance company could deny if a child had asthma, if someone was a breast cancer survivor, if a grandparent had diabetes? And thankfully, as I've been vice president and we over the last 4 years have strengthened the Affordable Care Act, we have allowed for the first time Medicare to negotiate drug prices on behalf of you, the American people. Donald Trump said he was going to allow Medicare to negotiate drug prices. He never did. We did. And now we have capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. Since I've been vice president, we have capped the cost of prescription medication for seniors at $2,000 a year. And when I am president, we will do that for all people, understanding that the value I bring to this is that access to health care should be a right and not just a privilege of those who can afford it. And the plan has to be to strengthen the Affordable Care Act, not get rid of it, pass as prologue in terms of where Donald Trump stands on that.
I want to move to an issue that's important for a lot
She made a mistake. At number one, John McCain fought Obamacare for 10 years. But it wasn't only him. It were all of the Democrats that kept it going. And you know what? We can do much better than Obamacare, much less money. But she won't improve private insurance for people, private medical insurance. That's another thing she doesn't want to get. People are paying privately for insurance that have worked hard and made money, and they want to have private. She wants everybody to be on government insurance where you wait 6 months for an operation that you need immediately.
President Trump, thank you. We have another issue that we'd like to get to that's important for a number of Americans, particularly younger voters, and that's climate change. President Trump, with regard to the environment, you say that
climate fucking change.
Vice President Harris, you call climate change an existential threat. The question to you both tonight is, what would you do to fight climate change? And Vice President Harris, we'll start with you. 1 minute for you each.
Well, the former president had said that climate change is a hoax. And what we know is that it is very real. You ask anyone who lives in a state who has experienced these extreme weather occurrences, who now is either being denied home insurance or it's being jacked up. You ask anybody who has been the victim of what that means in terms of losing their home, having nowhere to go. We know that we can actually deal with this issue. The young people of America care deeply about this issue. And I am proud that as vice president over the last 4 years, we have invested $1 trillion in a clean energy economy, while we have also increased domestic gas production to historic levels. We have created over 800,000 new manufacturing jobs while I have been vice president. We have invested in clean energy to the point that we are opening up factories around the world. Donald Trump said he was going to create manufacturing jobs. He lost manufacturing jobs. And I'm also proud to have the endorsement of the United Auto Workers and Sean Fain, who also know that part of building a clean energy economy includes investing in American-made products, American automobiles. It includes growing what we can do around American manufacturing and opening up auto plants, not closing them like happened under Donald Trump.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
It didn't happen under Donald Trump. Let me just tell you, they lost 10,000 manufacturing jobs this last month.
That's right.
It's going, they're all leaving. They're building big auto plants in Mexico, in many cases owned by China. They're building these massive plants, and they think they're going to sell their cars into the United States because of these people. What they have given to China is unbelievable. But we're not going to let that. We'll put tariffs on those cars so they can't come into our country, because they will kill the United Auto Workers and any auto worker, whether it's in Detroit or South Carolina or any other place. What they've done to business and manufacturing in this country is horrible. We have nothing because they refuse. You know, Biden doesn't go after people because supposedly China paid him millions of dollars. He's afraid to do it. Between him and his son, they get all this money from Ukraine. They get all this money from all of these different countries. And then you wonder, why is he so loyal to this one, that one, Ukraine, China? Why is he? Why did he get $3.5 million from the mayor of Moscow's wife? Why did she pay him $3.5 million? This is a crooked administration, and they're selling our country down the tubes.
But I'm not Joe Biden.
Thank you.
We'll be right back with closing statements from both of our candidates in a historic night, this ABC News presidential debate from Philadelphia. Back in a moment.
So this is how it's going to work. After the closing statements, I'll give each of you guys 5 minutes to tell me what you think, and then we're getting the fuck out of here. Because my brain hurts.
Give me a minute and a half. That's all I need.
I'm telling you, this is ridiculous.
I might need a minute to go bang my head against the wall. Formulate
This is
some common
absolutely
sense.
ridiculous. She doesn't understand that the things that she's saying already been debunked for years. And that people aren't going to see through that.
She's still in TV land. She's not in social media land like we are, where we're seeing people on the ground next to dead cats.
That's right. That's right.
You know, she's still in TV land, and TV land believes in whatever the fuck they tell you to believe in.
Yep. No, you're right. I always say that these people don't live in reality, that their reality is totally different than our reality. And it absolutely is. It's absolutely ridiculous. But everybody's going to say that she won this thing today. Yeah, absolutely.
Obviously gonna, especially with the abortion thing, right? Yeah, she has been kind of impressive, honestly. I am impressed. She does seem like she's
been very articulate with her speech.
She's been schooled.
But her facts are absolutely off the wall. Off the wall. I mean,
she's losing because she can't attack him.
Exactly.
Right.
And some of the things that she is saying are ridiculous.
Because it's attacks. That's all she has is attacks. Because if they start asking about her policy, like she said, what about the fracking? And she was like, sweep the leg. We're not talking about that. We're going to talk about something else. And it was like, well, what the fuck, And I get it. Trump's not doing that as well. He's doing that as well. But he's also, going towards the actual result of the issue. It's not like he's skeeting the problem. He's, this is already a solved problems. This is the solution.
Yeah. And I'm not saying Trump's done a fantastic job here, but
it's just one guy.
To rely on nothing but debunked shit as a debate prep without going to policy and turning the page is very difficult for me to comprehend.
And she pulled that fucking that ad out where he said, well, they were, those 5 kids, they pled guilty, right? They all knew they did it, right, or something, whatever. How'd you get caught? There anyway. So
it was
whatever.
40 years ago.
40 years ago. So
because that's all they have to go on. They have nothing else to throw at him.
And that's what he said.
And it's just like, yeah.
There's nothing current. Yep. This is what they got to do. And lie. You got to remember, lie is on their side. And as long as the television media keeps pumping it, as we all know in Project Mockingbird, you tell a lie long enough over and over, people will believe it. Absolutely. Up into and including having verifiable evidence suggesting against.
While they're kneeling on the pit, waiting to get shot in the back of the head, to turn around and say, "Thank you." That's where we're going to be at with Kamala. Fucking dope. Anyway,
I actually think it'll be a bright flash of light, an intense searing heat, and then a wave that comes and blows the ashes away. Honestly,
it could be. It could be.
Live from the National Constitution Center in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Here again, David Muir and Lindsay Davis.
Welcome back tonight. The time has come for closing statements, and Vice President Harris, we begin with you.
Thank God.
So I think you've heard tonight 2 very different visions for our country. One that is focused on the future, and the other that is focused on the past, and an attempt to take us backward. But we're not going back. And I do believe that the American people know we all have so much more in common than what separates us. And we can chart a new way forward. And a vision of that includes having a plan, understanding the aspirations, the dreams, the hopes, the ambition of the American people, which is why I intend to create an opportunity economy, investing in small businesses, in new families, in what we can do around protecting seniors, what we can do that is about giving hardworking folks a break and bringing down the cost of living. I believe in what we can do together that is about sustaining America's standing in the world and ensuring that we have the respect that we so rightly deserve, including respecting our military and ensuring we have the most lethal fighting force in the world. I will be a president that will protect our fundamental rights and freedoms, including the right of a woman to make decisions about her own body and not have her government tell her what to do. I'll tell you, I started my career as a prosecutor. I was a DA, I was an attorney general, a United States senator, and now vice president. I've only had one client, the people. And I'll tell you, as a prosecutor, I never asked a victim or a witness, are you a Republican or a Democrat?
Bullshit.
The only thing I ever asked them, are you okay? And that's the kind of president we need right now. Someone who cares about you and is not putting themselves first. I intend to be a president for all Americans and focus on what we can do over the next 10 and 20 years to build back up our country by investing right now in you, the American people.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump?
So she just started by saying she's going to do this, she's going to do that, she's going to do all these wonderful things. Why hasn't she done it? She's been there for 3.5 years. They've had 3.5 years to fix the border. They've had 3.5 years to create jobs, and all the things we talked about. Why hasn't she done it? She should leave right now, go down to that beautiful White House, go to the Capitol, get everyone together and do the things you want to do, but you haven't done it, and you won't do it because you believe in things that the American people don't believe in. You believe in things like we're not going to frack. We're not going to take fossil fuel. We're not going to do things that are going to make this country strong, whether you like it or not. Germany tried that, and within 1 year, they were back to building normal energy plants.
Right.
We're not ready for it. We can't sacrifice our country for the sake of bad vision. But I just ask one simple question. Why didn't she do it? We're a failing nation. We're a nation that's in serious decline. We're being laughed at all over the world. All over the world, they're laughed. I know the leaders very well. They're coming to see me. They call me. We're laughed at all over the world. They don't understand what happened to us as a nation. We're not a leader. We don't have any idea what's going on. We have wars going on in the Middle East. We have wars going on with Russia and Ukraine. We're going to end up in a third world war, and it'll be a war like no other because of nuclear weapons, the power of weaponry. I rebuilt our entire military. She gave a lot of it away to the Taliban. She gave it to Afghanistan. What these people have done to our country, and maybe toughest of all, is allowing millions of people to come into our country. Many of them are criminals, and they're destroying our country. The worst president, the worst vice president in the history of our country.
President Trump, thank you. And that is our ABC News presidential debate from here in Philadelphia at the National Constitution Center. I'm Lindsay Davis.
And I'm David Muir. Thank you for watching here in the U.S. and all over the world, and from all of us here at ABC News. Good night.
Yeah, I think David did pretty good. He was like a robot.
And we...
It wasn't a bad
Jesus.
per se. The debate was good.
You got to say.
But on both sides, I'm not going to give this to say, oh, Trump. Trump blabbergasted just like he does.
Mm-hmm.
But Kamala used every debunked talking point that they can throw at her. Obamacare, Charlottesville, January 6th, everything. And where I stand, I don't know what the fuck policy she was talking about.
Exactly.
I have no idea. So that's my take on it. We'll go with Mr. W. We'll go around, then we'll get the hell out of here.
That was the most exhausting debate I ever watched.
You see what it did to my voice?
Yeah. Do you guys feel drained for nothing?
Yes.
It was just like you said, Pete. It was just lie after lie, debunk. Yeah. You know, it was like walking in circles. And when you got back, you walked around again, and nothing was really said tonight. It was just the same old Trump rhetoric with Kamala throwing out everything that's been debunked. And yeah, it's the same. I didn't get anything out of this debate. I can't say either of them won.
I won't either.
I'm going to pass it on. I'll point down at Spaz.
Okay. Look, we need to understand that a lot of this information is not for us because we're connected to the stream. Okay. We live by the stream. We can see the stream. We can hear the stream in our sleep. That's the stream, right? These people live far away from the stream. They're listening to another noise, another vibration called cable television or whatever the fuck you want to call it nowadays. My dad hears it all the time too, right? Because he listens to me and what I got to say, and I'm plugged into the stream, right? And then, you know, I'm sitting at the dinner table playing the stream, and he can hear the stream, but he's like, you know, what the fuck, you know? And some people, they watch the cable TV, they watch The View, they watch these programs. I don't think there's anything on cable TV that's real anymore. You know, even Netflix. Netflix is nothing real, but we're not even focused on that. YouTube, there's things that are real on YouTube, but break it on down. Now you're getting the X or Telegram, these other places where it's real. It's real all the time. These are real people, even if they're fake. I mean, even if I'm fake, I could be a body double. I don't fucking know. I don't know. I don't upload on TikTok either. So, I mean, I guess until I do, maybe I'm not really real. Maybe I'm a clone. I'm a fucking.
Could be.
But a lot of people are. They're doing these things live and uploading up. And some of us got the eyes and the ears already, like you, Mr. W. We already know. We already see through the bullshit. But I don't think that's what the debate was for tonight. It wasn't for me and you. It was for all those people who watch TV. And I think one of her greatest mistakes tonight was saying, you all should go watch a Trump fucking rally.
Yeah.
Maybe they will.
Yeah, maybe they will. Is right.
And eat some fat on the way.
All right. Go ahead, Warrior.
Okay. First of all, I'm going to reclaim my time. But, yeah, I know. I figured you guys, I would like that. But anyways, we didn't learn anything at all tonight. Nobody who's been paying attention for the last 2 years. I'm going back just to 2022. No one has learned a damn thing, to be honest. Trump didn't answer half a dozen questions that were given to him directly because he spun off into something else. Kamala just repeated the same rhetoric that the other news agencies are, even Fox News. I heard a lot of Fox News in here. I heard a lot of all the mainstream media bullshit. Right. I even heard some of the alternative mainstream media bullshit. There's some of their talking points that they put out as well. I just, and people ask me why I'm not voting this year, and this is the reason. Whether this debate you saw here, there was nothing there that I saw that was actually going to help anybody personally. I heard both sides, larger government on both sides. Okay. I didn't hear anybody about getting rid of the IRS. I didn't hear anything about getting the Federal Reserve. I didn't hear anything about getting shrinking the government size at all. I didn't hear it. I heard increasing our debt, increasing our inflation, and increasing our government size. That's what I heard. And I would like anybody out there to tell me if I'm wrong. And we'll watch it. I'll play a show on this. I'll do a show where we watch the whole damn thing again and we talk about it for 5 fucking hours. Okay.
I won't be there.
So I know you won't be there because I'll blow people's mind by hour 3. They'll be like, okay, dude, you get it. Okay, we understand. Okay, you win. Okay, mercy. But it's just the whole. Hold on, Spaz. Just a second. It's just the whole thing. Where's my comfy doll, Warrior? It's right here. I have a little elephant. So it's a.
There you go.
Do. Anyways, no, I thought I expected exactly what Kamala said, and I expected what Trump didn't say, and I think it's sad at this point that we have to keep curtailing to the normies and to everybody else, even though they're already going to vote for Trump, vote for the idea of Trump. But there's I didn't hear anything as of significant value. Much like the 2020 debates, it's just a bunch of him defending himself. Trump was defending himself in his policy, is what whenever she attacked him, and that's what I saw. It was lackluster. People are gonna break it apart and go, well, there are comms here and there are booms here and this and that. I'm like, guys, just get off the fucking dick. Okay, get off his dick for a little bit and actually think logically about these things. Okay, they're both paid opposition. They're both people who are highly pro Israel, and they're both paid by and funded by Israelis. So
You're right. That Trump missed a huge opportunity here by reverting back to the old rhetoric.
Yeah.
And you could easily prove that by just watching and pointing out. I mean, we could have done that, but
yeah,
we didn't.
absolutely.
So I agree with you 100% on that.
But
Jim Bob, I don't expect him to do that on these things, because if you're going to get rid of 3 letter agencies, do you really want to promote that? You know, if you're going after the quote unquote deep state of the cabal, do you really want to broadcast that out? Maybe not. You know, but when you hear 100 million people come in your direction, that it starts to be thunderous. I didn't hear anything about reducing our taxes, our property taxes, our getting rid of the federal income tax. You know, I heard there's the thing that's floating around, the tax don't tax tips. You know, the thing that stuff's going on here on this channel. Okay, it's cool, right? You know, don't tax Social Security. Yeah, that's a thing I've been hearing that since the mid 90s. All right, people. So that's nothing new. Okay, so nothing that has been presented tonight has anything new or anything revolutionary or anything mind blowing and boggling what's going on. It's the same bullshit we've been served for the last 50 years, just in different packages. Okay, so if you guys don't like that, then I'm not going to apologize for it. But that's just how I see it. And if I'm wrong, why don't you come on my shows and tell me I'm wrong, please? Okay.
No, I don't think it's like that. Not for me.
That's fine.
The thing I'm afraid of is when you no longer vote because you already believe it doesn't matter. And I get all your points. I really do, because those are issues for me too. But I'm still, I don't know, guess I'm still humping the harp of hope, thinking that there's going to be some kind of non-kinetic solution to the problem.
And because voting your way out of a situation is working so well as of right now, right?
Look, I get you, but we're all on certain levels, right? Just like the debate wasn't for us, it was for all those normies out there that continue to keep on waking up.
I agree with that.
This is
realizing
the slowest Great Awakening
it is.
Ever.
Look, as long as it's
ever.
Think about it. If you had a plan to do this, what would your end goal be? I think my end goal baseline would be save as many people as we can. And however long that needs to fucking take to save as many motherfuckers as we can, that's what we need to do. Because that's our baseline, bro.
No, there's the thing, though, is that not everybody's going to wake up to this. Everybody's going to be, oh, well, I got my internet and I can order food to my front door. I'm good to go. So I got food in the grocery store. I don't need any of this shit. There's a lot of people that are still like that. A lot of low IQ people who are, sub-Saharan, sub-African, and, they're just like right above the retardation line. They think this way. Okay. They really do.
We got the jabs and the vaccines.
The whole 9 yards. Absolutely. So you're not going to be able, in war, you can't save everybody. Okay?
They weren't hiding under their school desks.
On, a fifth dimensional warfare. We're on this level warfare, spiritual warfare, yada, 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 right?
Yeah.
Well, in a war, it's called collateral damage. That's what it's called. You can't logically reason. There's some people, there's a lot of people on this platform who don't even understand my point of view, where I'm coming from. All right, for multiple reasons, but they see it as I'm copping out, and I'm going, well, I don't want to have this continual perpetual cycle of, well, who do I vote for? Lesser of two evils. Who do I want to be my master? Who's going to beat me less? That's kind of how I look at it. And I'm saying I'm tired of being beaten. I'm tired of putting my skin in their game. So I'm done. I'm cutting away from it. I'm slowly moving away from this whole paradigm itself. I'll be creating my own things, building my own shit. That whole movement of separating, creating a whole new system of our money system, our monetary, everything has to do, our own medical system, everything. All of that has to be done But you can't do that within the current paradigms of what we're seeing in politics and society. You have to remove yourself from that.
But
Okay, in order to win the game, you have to not play the game. It's their game. It's not your game. You have a choice not to. You have to recognize it, okay? You have to recognize that their game is going on, the systems of control, understand who's in control of these systems, and then say, you know what? I don't have to do this.
Look,
Okay, people?
I'm really trying to see it your way, and I've spoken to people who see the same way you do, and I get it. I think I do, but I'm also like, in this climate, as you say, you think you can do it alone?
No.
Next question. What is the solution?
Spaz, at this point in American politics, and speaking just from a political standpoint, I don't think there's a solution. Or are there any politicians that are going to offer solutions?
Look, I'm not, you know me, I'm all about sweep the leg technology. Look, this is a system, right? This is a system. We all, I mean, I keep getting up and going to fucking work, and, you know, half my money, I don't fucking see it, goes to wherever the fuck, I don't fucking know, you know? I get it, but I'm also trying to, you know, I fucking solve problems every day. People just keep throwing problems at me and like, you're my magician. Yeah, I fucking solve problems, you know, so I'm trying to find a solution to it, right? And I'm trying also, like, you know, I got kids. So, you know, I mean, more the merrier. The least people who could die, that'd be great. You know, so I'm like, you know, how do we do this? I don't want to get too kinetic, but I'm also like, I understand there's a system. The system, I believe, is based on our ideas, our belief system. I get it. You think it's a system. It's just a belief system. Because let me tell you what, I can spend most of my fucking day in bed just as easily for the next fucking 10 years. And I can start tomorrow and not have a fucking problem. You know what I'm saying? But, you know, what's the change that needs to happen? And the change that needs to happen is not just within the individual. It's within all of us. And how do you awaken everybody to come together to go, or at least outside the window, and scream, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore.
I'm a human, goddammit.
My life has meaning.
Exactly, yeah.
Of awakening somebody is their journey alone. You can shove shit down people's throat for decades. It doesn't mean they're going to like the taste of shit. And then one day, they're going to say, this shit tastes good. It could take 20 years.
Oh my God, Dad. Yeah. I had no idea. I'm like, I've been telling you that idea.
A couple weeks ago on Saturday, I put 3 movies in a row specifically for people to listen to the message. Okay? And you guys need to go back and look at the Saturday show that I did to wake up. Is because of this. Is because if you don't understand who, because everybody's like, oh, the deep state, the cabal, or the Democrats, whatever. No, it goes way beyond that. Okay, somebody's in charge of somebody else who's in charge of somebody else. Okay,
exactly.
I encourage those people who just think it's the Democrats to keep looking at systems of control. Okay, so everybody, whether we want to realize or want to admit it or not, we are all in systems of control. Now, the most dangerous thing to a tyrannical government is an educated populace. You have to get educated on these systems of control. You have to be educated on who really is in charge of things. Okay, and it doesn't matter what their title is whoever is making the decisions. Now, we're not going to ultimately see these faces of who makes the ultimate decisions, who these 15 people are around a table smoking cigars and drinking children's blood. We're not going to see these fucking reptiles here. But we can see the actions around it. We can see who's doing their work by paying attention to the people who are making decisions, people who are working at World Economic Forum, people who are in TED Talks, where all these migrants, these illegal aliens are coming from the southern border. All of these things play into a factor here, and we have to rise above this. We have to say, okay, listen, I understand there's a microcosm of this or that or this or that, where it's got your brain going in 1,000 different directions, all over, just scurrying around like cockroaches at night. But you have to move above that to realize who is forcing you, who is putting things in front of your mind to make your mind go in 1,000 different directions. Okay, this is part of the psychological addiction that I keep telling people about, I keep speaking about. Okay, and if you don't understand that you're psychologically addicted to an idea, then we should have a one-on-one conversation. I can prove it to you are. This whole notion of we have to pick this person, otherwise this person's going to destroy America. Is nothing more than a fear factor. It's ridiculous. It is ridiculous. It's a fear factor. It's to get that the fifis going and get people to go, I'm going to vote harder. I'm going to go harder at this. I'm going to do this harder. And it's like, well, okay, let's look at the what was the problem in 2020? The voting machines, the Dominion software, right? All that stuff that was in there. And look at what states have gotten rid of all of those states. That's not enough to win. It isn't, people. Okay, I understand the hope, the desire, and the want to have, what we had, a little taste of freedom in 2020 to 2021 to 2017 to 2020. That taste of freedom. I understand that. I understand people like paying $1.89 for a gallon of gas for and paying $2 for premium. I understand that. I do. I get that. But we have to get past those human desires of wanting money or having the comfort of money to sustain you, okay? We're going to have to go through some hard times to be better, people. All right? If you've never been poor or destitute in your life, then you are behind the 8 ball on this one, okay? Because I've been poor. I've been destitute. I understand that feeling. I know what it's like to have a welfare Christmas, okay? I know what it's like to have no presents at a Christmas.
Yeah.
All right? So if you haven't had these feelings before, you got some mental maturity to grow up to, and we have a lot. There's a lot of mental maturity that has to go. People have to grow up to. A lot of people have to get past this middle school mentality that if you're not a cool kid or if you don't sit at our table, then fuck you and we're gonna make fun of you and all that kind of stuff. We have to get past that middle school mentality because it does nothing but bring people down. It doesn't move as fast. Answer your question, it doesn't move the needle forward for us. You know what I'm saying? It just sits there and vibrates because people are live. They're sorry. I'm ranting. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
So
the word you're looking for.
I have a question for Pete. My wife texted me 5 times. Is that a hamster or a gerbil behind you?
Oh, they're 2 hamsters.
2 hamsters. Okay.
Yeah.
And someone in the chat said that. Yeah.
Is one Mr. Living Wings?
She has a hamster too.
I blame that on climate change. Because in my daughter's bedroom, it's kind of hot in there. My house is not the best insulated. And in the studio, the air conditioner stays on 24/7 at 70 degrees. So I told her to leave him in here until the temperature drops, till it's comfortable.
So
you'll
winter
see
time,
that
basically.
hanging out in the background for a little while.
Cool. You have mascots. I didn't recognize that. I didn't see that.
My wife has a hamster. It was a compromise. She wanted to get a possum as a pet. We already have 4 dogs and a cat. She wanted to get a possum. I was like, how about
no possums.
No, that'll be a bloody mess across all of my carpet.
Could you imagine?
It's nice to know your heart extends to gerbils behind
you.
you.
Oh yeah.
But anyway, look,
all small creatures, big and small.
Thank you.
I am. I always try to relate. I always try to stand on both sides of the bridge, right? So I'm thinking, I love Warrior's idea. I think he can do that. But also, I remember things like Ruby Ridge.
Waco.
I'm old enough to know both of those events, guys.
And to know them, I mean, incorporate those ideas in your own life.
Yep.
And I'm saying nothing happened. Remember, they stood over the ashes and took pictures. All those guys that did Ruby Ridge received medals for what they did.
Yeah, but here's the thing though, is that there's so many more of us than there are of them.
Look,
and in order to make our country, it's clear at this point we can't legislate our way out of tyranny. We're gonna have to stand together. We're gonna have to get dirty. We're gonna have to get our hands bloody, in the proverbial sense, if any of the FBI or whoever the government faggots are listening. We're gonna have to get our hands proverbially dirty. We're gonna have to get out in the streets eventually, and we're gonna have to push people out of our community. Especially those that are having the Venezuelans and all the other illegal aliens in the community. What do you think is going to happen eventually? Those people are going to get violent. They're. I mean, the videos that I've seen. I mean, I know what it takes to twist to break the neck of an animal by twisting its neck.
Right.
I've had to do that before. Chickens, you take them and real quick, and that's how you execute them before you harvest them.
There's people who don't want to get their hands dirty. There's people who don't want to do anything. They want to sit back and watch and see what happens.
That's because we have this and our internet's there. We can still order Grubhub to our front door and everything else. That's why.
Let me insta this. Why? Hey, there's a guy out here getting mugged or getting shot. They're killing cats.
Exactly. There needs to be a huge shift in the mindset, and that's why I say people are psychologically addicted. And now I'm adding on top of that, they are mental children. Mentally, they're children. And P2P, all of us right here, all of us have hit certain ages, and all of a sudden we had epiphanies like, holy shit. Yep. Like for me, a big one was 30. When I hit 30, all of a sudden I was like, holy fuck, I just survived.
20 years ago.
I just right. Well, that was not so long ago for me, but when I hit 30, I was like, holy shit, this is like, things make sense now. Holy crap. I mean, literally on my birthday night, I'm out there having a cigar. I'm 3 to 4 strong and I'm having a good time. And all of a sudden just wham, reality hit me right in the fucking face. It's like, oh, my balls hurt now all of a sudden. That's what it feels like.
Because you're being kicked in the balls.
Yes, it's true. You are. Yes.
I just realized it.
To both legs, both feet, right? One for each testicle. That's Mother Nature for you.
And that was your personal awakening.
Exactly, and everybody has a personal awakening, but I don't think we're in a position where we can sit there and wait for a bunch of people, because a vast majority of the population is becoming aware and noticing these things, noticing what's going on. I see the change on Twitter. I see the change on True Social. I see the change in the environment where people are posting and their rhetoric. They are changing. They're aware. And they're becoming noticing. So I've got to ask the question: what big event is going to come to switch our attention to over something shiny over here to from away from this great awakening? Because it's going to have to be something big, guys. It's going to have to be something fucking huge in order to get the masses to look over here and not over there.
Yeah.
Now the question is, what is that? That's a great question. It's a great discussion for a later time.
I got a great question. You know why your balls hurt?
Why is that?
Because both of your legs been swept.
It's landed right on my dick.
Sit down, right? Get to the chopper. Yeah, and it's a life-changing experience. It really is. Just like having your own kid, and seeing it be like, wow, you just came out of something I love, and wow, you're breathing now. I gotta feed you forever. What the fuck is going on, man? Life changing. Look, let me tell you what else is life changing. Because I'm a Q-tard. I'll call myself that. I'm a Q-tard, and the most important thing I ever thought I learned at a following Q is where we go one, we go all. And I think that is entirely the baseline idea of the solution to our problem. Because what comes out of where we go one, we go all? Now we formulate an oath. This is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to strive to do. Make America great again. Right? Something. Whatever the fucking idea is, I swear, I pledge allegiance to the flag. Right? We used to.
But
do
it's
that
an
in school.
over-encompassing idea, Spaz,
But,
and it's
right,
there's
why
no
they keep getting rid of it?
definitive A to B to C to D to E to F. That's what I'm trying to say is that we had a whole group of people who didn't know what to do. Within 200 years, you created a vast one of the world's history's most powerful nations within a 200-year time frame.
But
so it's like how what are we capable of? And under that, about half of that time, you had freedom, actual freedom from the Federal Reserve and from everybody else. But within the last 100 years, it hasn't been that way. We none of us here actually understand what true freedom is. Nobody here in the chat understands what true freedom is. Okay,
but
it's been longer than 100 years.
Are you
I'm
ready?
just saying, argumentally,
Look,
probably 150 years, realistically, 200 years.
But I'm just saying, every Tuesday night, you, me, and Pete come here, and remember back in the day, you used to have your presentations. We used to discuss things that happened way long ago, right?
Oh, yeah.
We knew this, right? And the only way some of these things could have ever happened is if a great majority conjoined upon a same idea, the same mindset, whether it's slavery or Pharaohism or whatever the fuck. Whatever the fuck. These things happen. These were great things. And how did they happen? Right? Just like the founding of our nation. How did it happen? I honestly think it was bravery of being fed up. And we had an opportunity being on this continent, because they had to, right? Look, freedom is just an idea. Liberty is just an idea. These are ideas. We should be able to think these. I mean, you want to think communism? Fine. You want to think liberalism? Fine. I'm okay with that. There's plenty of places on this planet that think that way. Go live there.
Yeah.
Right. Because here, because I was just discussing with my dad, right? Because he was like, all these people coming in. I'm like, yeah, Dad. And he was like, I remember back, because he's older than me. I remember back when, people, coming in.
Your dad is older than you.
Yeah. Yeah, he's like almost 70 anyway.
Oh, really?
So he's like 20 years older than me. Anyway, so look, he was like, he remembers when, when people came in, they had to go through a rigorous process. And it was learning things. You had to learn things and recite these things. It was like a test. And then after you completed the test and received high marks in the test, then you had to pledge yourself and your life upon the American values. You were no longer wherever the fuck you came from.
Yeah, you had to denounce your citizenship from the country you came from.
You take this pledge, you are an American. You live by American values, by American rules. And there used to be a time when we used to do that, and my dad remembers it. And I'm not sure I do. And it didn't take long, did it, fellas?
No.
It's just, I keep telling my kids all the time, change the way you think about it. But I just hope they can change the way they think about it to benefit everybody.
Mm-hmm. I'm just gonna tell you a real quick short story. September 28, 2006, my squad came under a complex ambush of small arms and IEDs. I was wounded in action and I was CASVAC back to Balad. And when I was in Balad Hospital, there was this little girl, Iraqi girl, who was shot in the head. She's the only survivor of her family. And this master sergeant from the Air Force would rock her to sleep every night. And that's when I realized, why? Why am I here? Why am I doing this? What's the whole purpose of this? A little 5-year-old girl, her whole family was murdered. She was shot in the head and survived, magically survived. What is this all about? because I retired from the Marine Corps. I've been to, Somalia. I've been every war zone around the world. That was my job. And to see this little girl being rocked by this master sergeant every night. And then over across from me in that bed is an insurgent who got fucked up pretty good. They shot him up, but they were taking care of him. Why is he here? Why are we all here? That's when I started the change. And then one night before I left Iraq, we were right outside Camp Fallujah talking to my interpreter. He was from Baghdad. And he says, I don't hate you. The insurgents don't hate you. You don't hate me, but you probably hate the insurgents. But why are we doing this? This is coming from Iraqi. Why are we doing this? What's the whole purpose of this? And that's the day I was like, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore.
Let me tell you something. 2,000 years ago, there were Roman soldiers saying the same thing, holding their spears up, wondering the same fucking thing.
I remember
That's how
the
they
exact
lasted so
moment
long.
that I had the exact same question that Mr. W had.
Yep.
I had mine just 3 years later when I was going from. We were doing a run from Cedar 1 to Cedar 2, which is right before the Bosnian Bridge, which is right south of the Euphrates River. So there's a base there, and then there's another base closer to where, if for the historians and archaeologists out there, I went and saw Cedar 2 is 5 to 10 miles away from to where a ziggurat was constructed to where Abraham supposedly was born, the site where he was born. So I love the history of the entire area. Beautiful, beautiful structures, just bombed to shit though, But it wasn't until it was a bright sunny day, and we usually run ops at night, and so we had to run a midday mission. So we ran some supplies over to Cedar 2, but then you have these people coming out from their shack, literally a shack, asking for, you can tell these people are thin, asking for food and stuff like that. And we have three flats of jumbo blueberry, strawberry, and banana muffins. We've got 24 packs of Rippets, which are, basically they should be illegal. Because they're so high in caffeine and everything else. They're like Monster but just on crack, and they come in these little 9-ounce cans. So little cans of crack, just a little bit at a time, right? When we were throwing these, our extra food supplies at them, I just got to myself, I just came from a DFAC that has every food that you could imagine in the stateside in a cafeteria. You can have stuff specially made for, if you want a double bacon cheeseburger with triple cheese and double bacon, you could have that made for you in the DFAC. And I'm thinking, we're in this vehicle, we're in this Humvee no more than 10 minutes down the road, and here I am at seeing these people starving, and yet, so I'm like, what the fuck are we even doing here? To be honest, are we looking for weapons of mass destruction like we were all rused to think we were? Did my buddies die in the first deployment just because of bullshit? Yeah, because of lies, people.
Sorry, man.
Because you know what? I've come to terms with it, okay, and I hope their family has too. But the thing is that what a lot of soldiers have already come to terms with is that the entire deployment to Iraq, for the first one, and the one in the early 90s, and the second one, the early 2000s, was a lie. Both of them. And our government doesn't give a shit if we die or we don't. That's the hardest thing that a soldier has to come to terms with, is that we were willing to put our lives on the line for strangers and people we had no idea, and people who hated us. And yet we survived it. And then we realized that it's all a lie. I mean, talk about a mindfuck, guys.
We were all goated.
Well, when I became a security contractor, when I worked for a security company out of England, that's when I saw the real truth behind everything. Everything. That, here we are, we had soldiers, Marines, sailors in Iraq, Afghanistan, barely getting by with anything, right? They crack a windshield in an SUV. Do you think they fix it or they get a new one? They get a brand new one.
They get a brand new vehicle.
Yeah, and the money, you've seen the videos of them opening up crates over there with all this money in it. It's true. It's true. Where'd this money come from? Where'd this gold come from? You're not allowed to say no. Don't touch it. Be quiet. Be quiet. Or you're going to protect these dignitaries when they come in. And why are these dignitaries more important than the guys around me? The guys I'm working with now as freelancers and stuff. It's just it's a shitty world. And we all got to take a bite out of the shit sandwich. Some of us got to take 2 or 3 bites out of that shit sandwich. Yep. But one day, like everybody here, starting to spit that shit out and saying, no, I don't want to eat that anymore.
You realize it's not a Reuben. It is a turd sandwich that you're taking. You're being forced to take a bite out of it. And that's the thing, is that everybody's being forced to take a bite out of it, whether you realize it or not.
But
you pay your taxes, inflation, gas. Those are little tiny bites you have to take out of the turd sandwich.
Hey, Cheetos.
Hey, sir. How are you doing? I know you weren't. You were feeling some sort of way, but the debate was going on. We're all feeling some sort of way. I don't know. I think the vibes got better. How you doing, sir?
You talking to me?
Yeah, I'm talking to you. We're 2 fucking hours and 41 minutes. I'm just
I'm
asking. I'm asking how you are.
I wish you guys would just shut the hell up so I can end the show.
Well,
I'm tired.
Yeah,
I had a long day. My day started at I was out the house at like 8:30 this morning, and then got home at 5 o'clock.
We appreciate every little bit of life we can get out of you, but we also need to reserve some for your wife and
the cats. The cats, obviously.
We respectfully
the gerbils now
reclaim your time.
And she was in here watching the debate with us too. She was
watching on camera.
Yeah.
She wasn't watching.
Oh,
that's okay.
Tell her I'm going to slap her for that.
I do want to end the show, if you guys don't mind. I want to get something to eat and lay down for a while.
You can eat more Cheetos.
No more Cheetos.
Okay.
No more Cheetos.
No. We're moving on
to
the Taco Bell.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Taco Bell.
That's one step below Cheetos.
Yes. I'm on a mission.
He needs something to clear the Cheetos out later.
Okay. So the Taco Bell actually helps with digestion. Okay, gotcha. Okay.
Cheesy gordita crunch. You ever had one?
Jeez Louise.
Depending, like I said, on like Spaz said, how I feel. I don't know what I'm doing tomorrow, but just keep an eye out. So I don't know. But we'll definitely be here on Thursday. Talking bullshit. So we'll see what happens.
Talking bullshit.
Talking bullshit.
Talking bullshit and eating Cheetos with
There you go.
Before you close it out. Yes. Before you close it out, I mean, should somebody carry on this debacle, this conversation? Look, I respect PTP's rest, and I'm just saying, I'm all up for all 3 of us getting back into another discussion. I think we can.
My wife's already texting me saying, "Are you done yet?"
Oh my God!
I used to get it all the time.
Thank God I don't have one.
Take the trash out. Take the trash out. We gotta get.
I already took the trash out.
I don't know. Spaz might start something up here, but I'm gonna be turning my computer off. So,
look, Pete, we love you, man. Every moment we get to spend with you is a blessing.
Thank you, man.
And we pray for you.
I appreciate it
all the time, and I'm gonna.
And everybody on YouTube, there's like, there was a bunch. There's like 20 people around YouTube, DLive, X, and everybody on Build. Thank you for all the tips on Build. I appreciate it very, very much. So I'm just gonna put an end to the show. Thank you, Mr. W, Mr. Warrior, and Mr. Spaz.
Much love, sir.
I will see you guys as soon as possible. Much love to everybody.
Goodbye.
Bye.